Hello. Can you hear me? My volume working? Can anybody hear me?
Try this.
Oh.
Come on now. Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Hi.
Okay, I thought my volume was working.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Hey, Larry. Hey, Alba.
Hey, how you doing, Alba? How you doing, Christy? I said hi though before. I guess my mic wasn't on the right mic though.
So I was talking to Alba, but I don't think she could hear me.
I don't think she could at first because I couldn't hear you when I first came in the room.
Okay. Can she hear us now?
Alba, can you hear us? Shake your head yes if you can hear us.
I don't even think she's looking at us. She's looking at the screen, but I don't think she's looking at us. But okay. Let's see.
Let's see.
I got a funny story. Are we recording?
We are. Do you want me to turn it on?
No, I was in my S3, I was putting, so you know how you do the build? I was copying the build the file with all the build underneath, and I was putting that in my S3. So I got this 404 error. I was freaking out. I was like, oh my God. So you didn't have appointments. Max didn't have appointments until today. And so I saw Max's light on. So I sent him a message and I didn't go, after I did the build, I needed to go over one and then copy those files. But I had done it. So I had done it for my capstone, but then I did it for my portfolio because I finally got my portfolio working. And I was in here freaking out. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm sitting up here I'm on the computer like this, like, what is going on? So
yeah, it's a file hierarchy. I mean, if you put build in there, you're gonna have to put build in the URL to reach it.
But the 404 message was saying that it was missing the index.html. So that's what I had, this 404 error message. I was freaking out. I was like, what did you do? How did you break it? But
hey, Cal. Hey, Latonia. Happy Sunday.
Thank you.
Hey, Kyle. Hey, Latonia.
hello.
Congratulations, Alba.
Oh yes, definitely.
Thank you. I'm glad you had a office hour today because I would really like to get that deployed automatically instead of having to deploy every time I change something.
Totally, yeah. It's really painful doing it the manual way.
Yeah, since the food bank hasn't gotten back in touch with me, I have to update weekly on Monday the flyers from their site, make a copy of them and actually copy them down and then deploy them. So yeah, it'll be awesome if I don't have to do all of that.
Totally, yeah. Let me make sure that now. Make sure that we touch on that today. Man, a myth. legend, come to join us.
Hi, folks.
Yeah, and what's going
Hey,
on?
Ryan.
How's everybody doing?
Good, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing moderate. Yeah, I stop by and say hi.
Yeah, we're working on AWS things. I believe we're pinning together the front end and back end. I think that's what we got done last Sunday.
Excellent.
And then we'll have a brief discussion about GitHub Actions and how we can automate things instead of having to click a bunch of things. Larry, what are you thinking about today?
A question. So I went in and I believe I changed the code correctly with the the RDS stuff. But did you have to do a build version again and then upload that version, or was the build version before fine?
It depends. You need a database, right, for your backend to stand up.
Yeah.
Yeah. It depends. Like Elastic will continually restart in some interval. At some point, it will retry. If your code's good, it should connect to the database.
But like how you when we did like npm run or something, we did a build. You said npm build or something like that. Do we have to do
Right.
that over? You change the code.
Whenever you change the code, yeah, you're gonna have to redeploy the backend. But if all you were missing was the database and you added a database, you shouldn't have needed to redeploy the code in order for the backend to stand up. But before we jump into anything, so I've got talking about GitHub Actions on the list. What else are we missing? What else are people? Larry, do you want to do a quick log dive and see how your backend's doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I didn't really have a chance to, I did a little bit of fixing the back end, put the port in there and everything, but it's been a long time since I did anything with Node for back end. So I'm not sure if I need a database. I may just watch today. I didn't really have a ton of time, and I didn't get a chance to try to see if I could create it. Like, I don't remember how you create a database in Node, if you need to do that manually or if it, it's been a while. So
Okay, so creating a database, we could do that.
I started doing another project and the
Mhm.
database got created correctly. And when I clicked on the database information to apply it, it said that it went correctly, but it didn't show up in the site. So I gotta have something not connecting correctly.
All right.
Please let me know when you want me to show you the logs.
All right. So and then Doug, anything I can help you with today?
Something I was curious about. I don't know if this was already asked. I know I'm a little bit late. When we uploaded in class, and we uploaded front end and back end, and the back end code created or populated the database, I was curious about if we have a database that's already populated that we want to upload, how do we do that?
Oh, okay. Let's talk about that. So transferring from one database to the other. Okay. And then Latonia, Christy, anything for me that we want to talk about?
This is Latonia. I'm good. I wanted to go back through everything and I haven't been up to it, so I didn't get a chance. But when you and I met on that other thing, I was able to get all of that done. I actually sent
Okay.
you a ton of notes because I'm a note taker. But so I'm good. I may just be following along, but I am going to try to keep up.
Okay. Well, I don't think we necessarily have anything structured. I think we're just going to kind of spot. We're going to dig into each one of these items, and then, Christy.
I want to go over, I got the email that Doug got about the pre-tier. So if we could, if you could show us, like, do we need to add something or what we need to do different since we're getting, I'm very close to the 750.
Okay.
Also, I feel like we have a number of folks here that are familiar with Python. I'm wondering how different this would be to deploy a backend that was some kind of Python data, like Django or Fast API or something like that. You know, I don't want to take a ton of time if, you know, I know we're doing Node today, but just feeling like if I was going to deploy a backend, it would probably be Python, not Node. So
I would love to do that. I'd love to figure that out with all of you. So let's dive into this. I think we're going to tackle this in terms of how much effort this is going to be. So the first thing that I think will be the easiest to tackle is going to be, Larry, if you want to screen share, let's take a quick look. And as a group, let's try to triage. What's going on with Larry's backend. This is going to be a great. This is going to be a great example of helping out a colleague, and if we could identify the issue going on here. So, Larry, if you could take us to some logs, that would be awesome.
Can you see them?
I'm stared at Zoom.
Oh, okay. That's not too then. Okay. Stop share.
Are we recording? Oh,
We are recording.
Yes, we are. Share and the desktop too. And then all my Slack stuff is up there. Oh, here we go. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. These logs are from today and 1834. Does anybody know off the top of their head what UTC time is right now? It is
23.
21.
Isn't it like 5 hours past our regular time?
It is 6 ahead of me, so 4 ahead of you. All right. So that means that we are looking at 3 hours ago. So if you scroll down,
I feel like I just
Ryan, did you just did you pull it out of your head?
I pulled it out of my head. I'm just that good, Nathan.
Yeah, I assumed that you just like kind of knew it. And okay. So this is still 3 hours.
19.
Yeah, so this is still 3 hours ago. I'm wondering if. So here's an interesting fact about Elastic Beanstalk. So this is 3 hours ago, and Elastic Beanstalk is not retried. So it's effectively stalled here. So let's look at the last error. I see an error at this line right here. So it looks like the server started. So the server was running, it connected, and then we got this generic error. Does anybody know where we should go look? What do you want to guess?
In the code? I don't know.
Yeah, we need to look at our code, but does anybody see exactly where in the code we should start looking?
SQLize.
It's really related to SQLize, so we know it's something to do with the database.
In my DB file.
Exactly.
Did he do the slide? I forgot what number it is, 58.
All right, so let me share a different screen.
Yeah, well, let's see here in a second, Christy. Let's look at what's going on in DBJS on line 102.
102.22. Stop share. Share desktop 3. And then DB.js 122. Nathan, another thing I realized is somewhere in my code, I still have like some Heroku stuff.
Mm. So I see on 102, I see store.find all. This is erroring right here. So why would store.find all be erroring?
Is it a small s instead of a capital?
102,
Oh, like
20.
back here?
Yeah.
So he's declaring a new variable. He can case it however he wants.
It's his file.
I guess it's not reaching my database or something, because that is a call from the database, right?
Well, oh, here's the issue. It's this. We have that
Okay.
race condition that Max always throws in here, and
Doesn't have
so right, we need to await the DB sync because these two calls are happening in parallel. We're connecting to the database and then we're loading the store data. And because we don't wait for the DB sync to occur first, we're reaching line 102. We're reaching this find all before the tables have had a chance to propagate. So, Larry, I see two issues. First, we need an await here to cause this db.sync to truly block and create the tables. And then we need to chain the promises here. So we need to add, when we do the connect to DB, we need to connect to DB and then load the store data. So create a promise off of connect to DB. So take off the semicolon, start the dot then. So we can create a promise. Yep, dot then. All right, let's create a closure. So open parentheses. Yep, and then we're going to put a function inside of here or a callback. So 2 more parentheses exactly. Yep, the fat arrow and
Plus sign.
yep, and then some braces. Open up a function, and then inside of here we'll call that. Well, we'll wait until connect to DB is finished, and then we will call the load store data. So move that function call in 123 into those braces. Cool. All right. I think so. Then we'll go through that whole flow with the upload. We'll create a zip of all of this, upload it to Elastic Beanstalk.
All right, but I don't need to do like the npm build. I forgot what the command was. I don't need to do that again, though, right?
No, not for backend code. For front end code, you would need to do an npm run build, but for backend, just zip and you're off.
All right, let me move this to trash, and then send no package JSON. I mean, no modules. Compress. All right, and then back to. I got too many screens.
No Docker containers. No, we're doing the zip route. So for the back end. Go ahead.
All right. Let's see. All right, let me just get you back on the screen I'm on so y'all don't think I'm crazy. Stop. Share. Desktop 2. Okay. Back here. I'm still capsule Terraform. Uploading the choose file. And I'm praying it's this one. Yep, 516.
Once Nathan shows you folks how to hook this all up with GitHub Actions, your mind's going to be blown how much less hard this is going to be to do a deploy.
Don't be
Yeah.
like my calculus teacher, Nathan, and have us do the derivatives the long way and then show us like a one-line thing.
We're
That's
definitely doing
really
derivatives the long way right now.
this. It's exactly how it feels. Yeah.
But it's good to know this. Me and Doug said we thought it was good to know both ways.
I know, I'm just messing
It's
with
good to
it.
understand how it works behind the one line of code. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? You change you're just substituting for a bunch of magic. Like the GitHub actions are really just a lot of magic.
Yeah, and magic has a common frequency to break. Would you agree with me on that, Nathan?
I would, yeah. And then because it's magic and it breaks, you go, well, what do I do now? Because you substitute for more magic, go find another GitHub action to
Yeah.
copy and paste.
Yeah.
So did that actually take Larry? It looks like it didn't update the version.
Yeah.
It still says it's initial deploy v2.
Oh,
It looked upset for a second, but I'm not sure. Well, let's go check the logs, and if it's still complaining, then we'll know that we didn't fix anything. And then don't forget to request. Yep. Cool. And we don't care about error log. We just want to find the web standard out log. There it is. Keep going, keep going. Keep going. Server running, connected successfully. I don't see any further errors. So can we test an endpoint on your backend and see if it's running? What's an endpoint that your backend exposes? If we go and look at your code.
let's see, server. Get stores.
Stores, okay.
Yeah.
So let's go back to your browser and let's so the URL to your backend. If you go back, come out of this page, back to Elastic Beanstalk. Yep, and then click back to your environment. It's that where you can click on that. Oh, there we go. That works. Slash stores. So we're still fine with tuning. All right, take us back to the logs. Let's find out why is it crashing. I have to request the logs again. These are really old ones.
Oh, all right. Refresh. Plus 100.
Something else you folks might consider for your backend. A common thing you'll see on a lot of web servers is you'll have an endpoint that sort of just returns back like a constant bit of text. Usually it's called a health check endpoint. Sometimes you'll find it's just at the root slash, or sometimes it'll be like /health or something. That's often really helpful for a lot of things, but one thing here is being able to determine if the issue is with your server connecting to the database, or if it's due to your server not running properly. You know what I mean? So like if you have that, it gives you one more sort of hook you can use to troubleshoot this sort of stuff.
And what's interesting.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, and to build off of that, what's interesting is we're still sitting at the connect successfully. We don't have any error logs from the 502. So I think, Larry, take me back to Elastic Beanstalk again. Now let's just make sure that we've got the right URL. So click into yep, just get back to your environment and then click on this URL here. Interesting. So this is the root, Ryan. And I believe
Does it respond to a get?
I believe that Larry's code has a get on the root.
I have a get slash that responds with hello world.
Yeah.
On just the root, yeah. And the other interesting thing is if we go back to the code, if we go back to Elastic Beanstalk, you'll see that you go back to Elastic Beanstalk, you'll see that the light's green. And in Elastic Beanstalk, it does the health check based
Okay,
off of just
gonna ask
slash.
It says version 3.
And it's running version 3.
Yeah,
Now,
I mean, I would imagine
I
that
did have
root-
some Heroku code somewhere before though. Still,
I would imagine that root endpoint, if you're not able to hit that, it's sort of, we're beyond database at that point. Like there's something weird
Right.
going on. Yeah.
Right. Something going on with the runtime is my guess.
because I put the slash and didn't do it by gateway.
There's just one last thing I need to check. Let's go back to logs, request it one more time, and make sure that that we haven't gotten anything since the last time we tried this. Make sure these are fresh logs here. Okay. Last event was at 17:23. That looks right. Scroll down, keep going. And we're still sitting at logs from 5 minutes ago.
Can you shell into the instance at all? Or is Elastic Beanstalk not give you that?
Well, it's an EC2 under the hood, so we can get
Yeah.
into the EC2 instance for sure.
Okay.
I feel like we're just missing something obvious here, though. Let's look at the code. Hop back to the code.
I don't want to be a time hog either because we thought this would be the most easy one.
That's okay. This is good.
Oh,
This is a tricky
Actually,
problem.
Is it possible to do a force restart on it? Just sort of restart the process? What I'm
I mean, we
thinking
can deploy. That's the easiest.
Okay, I guess what I'm thinking there is, imagine you got a bunch of requests coming in, they're sort of all hung and in progress and like waiting to time out. You wouldn't see any logs then yet.
Right. Yeah, I think yeah, we can. I think that first deploy was shaky enough that maybe something wonky is going on there. Scroll up to the top. I just want to make sure that the server is binding to the port correctly. If you don't have a port, keep scrolling up.
That's as far as it's going.
On server.js, if you can scroll up to the top of this file.
Say that one more. Oh, on my file. Oh, okay, I'm looking at a different screen.
Yeah, okay, port here is incorrect. That's the RDS port. We want just port.
Nathan.
Yep.
Look up here on line 13, Heroku.com, HerokuApp.com too.
Oh, that's an old origin. You can delete that line on 13 if you'd like.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's zip this and deploy this build. I think that was the issue right there. I'm surprised though that Elastic Beanstalk hasn't gone into. I'm surprised we still have a green check mark, even though nothing was getting returned on that health check endpoint.
You might
Strange.
Oh, I was going to say that anyone who's watching this and sort of is worried that might run into the same sort of thing, one way we could have caught this earlier is if when you start the app, you print out the port it's listening on. It's a pattern a lot of apps follow. And this sort of helped, like if we had seen port, some crazy port, but we were like, wait a second, that crazy port's actually the database port, that would have been a hint.
Yeah, listening on 5432. Oh, no, it's not, probably not what we would have wanted. That's a good idea. All right.
And to do that, do you dynamically like do a console log listening on port and then whatever port your variable is set to?
Exactly, yeah.
So listening on port.
Yep.
Thanks.
We're gonna have to talk about that port assignment, Kyle, when we're
Okay.
later on at the end when we talk about Python. We'll have to figure that out because this will be interesting for Django. I was gonna make some smart quip
Hey,
about like
it works.
you don't have to worry about ports if you're using Python, but we're about to hit it. It will be an entirely different class of problems.
The other thing, is I'm just trying to look if I have anything I could deploy, like, that's not, like, I could legally
Success.
deploy. I might have like a tutorial thing that I did in Django or something, see how functional that is.
A
Thank
good
you
link.
so much. Success, yes.
Cool. All right. So we did that. Let's talk about
And I'm not to hog more time, but we're gonna talk about connecting them because we did not never connect them last class. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
yeah. Let's talk about connecting them. All right. So let's talk about let's do the free tier real quick, just because we can get that knocked out pretty quickly. So let me share my screen and log into AWS. So you've been getting emails about exceeding the free tier, and I just want to show quickly what you should really be concerned with. When you sign into your AWS account, you can go up to the top and type in billing. And here's the link to the billing page for AWS. Put this in Zoom chat. Oops, not that. Here is the billing. There we go. And you'll notice that mine has started to balloon a little bit because I'm running multiple apps. I've been running a couple of databases, a couple of backends, and a couple of front ends. So my costs are starting to go up a little bit. But the most so check this page out. This will help you kind of help you understand about how much you're spending, and then it has this little calculation about what it thinks that the upcoming spend will be. It has a forecast for what it thinks the rest of the month will be. And then down below, there's a couple of graphs. I'm trying to find which one, the interesting one here. Oh yeah, here we go. So it's on it's on this first graph, cost trend by top 5 services. There's over on the side, at least on my screen, there's over on the side a cost by service. And if you expand that, you kind of get this nice breakdown of how much you're spending and on which service. And no surprise, the biggest expenses here are going to be the databases and the EC2 instances. This is definitely going to be where most of the money goes, because you're actually running physical infrastructure in order to stand up a database and in order to host your backend. But you can let me copy this link because this is pretty handy. So check this out if you're interested. Now to get to the actual question, what are those alerts that I've been getting in the email about the free tier? Well, if you go over on the left, there's a free tier section, and you can see I'm already starting to blow way past this. I've already blown past the 750 hours for RDS for the database, and that's because I'm running multiple instances. You're probably let's see. So I don't remember when the first week that I was teaching was, but it's possible that you're starting to hit this for 750 hours over 12 months. That's really only enough time to run RDS 24/7 for about a month. So we're starting to hit the upper limits of the free tier here. And when you do, it really isn't going to balloon out of control, and it will be around for running one app on for running one app on AWS, it's going to be somewhere around $4 to $6, assuming that you've used all the settings that we talked about in class. The T2 micro size, that sort of stuff. But long story short, the emails you're getting, I wouldn't be too concerned about them. They're not generous limits. They're really just to help you get started experimenting with some of this stuff. It's not really meant to offset costs for the long term. So you're getting the emails. Don't worry about them. Come into your billing, check and see what you're actually spending and what you're spending it on. And if you're spending money on these kinds of things that you've been using and things that you've been setting up to host your app, don't sweat it. Any questions about that?
One other
Concerns?
thing worth mentioning, you should like take a look at the numbers on this page and make sure they're not absurd. I've worked at places before where the billing has kind of gotten out of control pretty quickly. And what actually happened was not that, I mean, there was like developers using lots of resources and that was a problem. But one thing that happened at one point is someone had an IAM key get leaked. And it was like they posted it to GitHub accidentally. And then some like bot that was scraping the internet found that IAM key, tested it out, found it was valid, and used to create a bunch of like massive instances in a weird region to start mining Bitcoin. Like this probably is not a thing you have to worry about, but I'm just bringing this up because this is a thing that happens and it's an attack that's like a pretty low, like it doesn't require much effort from you to accidentally screw up. Like make sure your keys stay secret. And if they don't, make sure you rotate them, because this is one of those things where like if someone gets a hold of your key, they can charge a lot of money to your account. And like the first time around, you can reach out to AWS and they'll probably be like, okay, whatever, we'll forgive it. But like you really have to sort of like, there are repercussions that can be significant if you misplace your keys. So just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good call out. There's also stuff over here on the side, these budgets that allow you to set up alerts. So you can set up an alert when your monthly cost goes over a certain amount or your daily cost goes over a certain amount. I think it would be smart. I think it would be smart to set some of these up. And this will just email whenever you've reached a certain threshold or gone over a certain threshold. But yeah. Other questions?
This might be
Alright.
nitpicky. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you. This is Latonia. This might be nitpicky, but can you only set alerts by the amount? What if, like what Ryan was saying was it was a whole different item in your bill? And I'm just wondering, can you set it by if something new should populate into your bill? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does.
I'm just wondering, like, how would we know? How would we know to look for something like that if we're not even, familiar with the platform that much?
Well, I'll be honest, there's some things that you just need to know. And you need to know that you're using the database service. You need to know that you're using Elastic Compute Cloud. You need to know you're using EC2. You need to be aware that we've been creating our SSL certificates using the key management service when we go to request a certificate. You need to know that we've been using Simple Storage Service S3. You need to know we've been using CloudFront. So there's and CloudWatch. So there's some of these things in here that should just jump out at you and not necessarily be a mystery. There's others in here that, okay, what is elastic load balancing? Well, I'm actually not even spending a single penny on it yet. So I think that you probably know a lot of these things in here already. And if you do see something that doesn't make sense, that's when you would probably reach out to get help.
It's also might be worth thinking about it kind of like a credit card bill. Like, I mean, some people will go through their credit card bill item by item to make sure it all makes sense. And if that's the kind of person you are, sweet. For me, I've never been that kind of person. It's one of those things where I look at the total, I'm like, this seems like it's feasible. Like I maybe spent this kind of money. But if I have a total, it's like $1,000 and I didn't spend really any money that month, I'm going to be like, okay, what the heck is going on? And then I'm going to dive into it. Like realistically, it's probably not going to happen. But I bring all this stuff up because like I want you to be aware of the consequences of not sort of taking security seriously.
Cool. All right. All right, so that was the free tier email. We still are going to talk about GitHub Actions. We're going to talk about the database a little bit, and then connecting front end and back end. Actually, I'm going to jump to the connecting front end and back end because I want to make sure we have time for that. So just to refresh my own memory, where we got with the Terraform. So I'm going to go hop back over to Elastic Beanstalk. Where we got with the Terraform last time, if I recall correctly, is we got our environment set up. Looks like I've deleted mine since the last time I was here. We got our environment set up, but we are still using this URL for our backend. Does that sound right to folks? Christy, Larry? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So one of the frustrating things about Elastic Beanstalk is that if you open up that URL, they actually don't give you. Let me just triple check to make sure I'm not lying. Yeah, I'm not lying. They don't actually give you an SSL certificate for the URL to generate. So you actually need to set up a URL for your backend. And what I've been recommending folks do is whatever the website is that you're going to have customers or people visit. What I've been having people do is set up a subdomain on that website. So let's say my website is cohort4.com, and that's my front end. What I've been having people do is I've been having them take their backend and make a URL called API dot. So creating a subdomain off of their main domain, and having it point to their backend, and then requesting a certificate for that. Does that make sense? Okay. So in order to do that, we have to go and we have to generate a certificate for this subdomain, so for API. And to do that, we need to go back into Certificate Manager. And request a certificate. So see here, I've actually got a request already made for a cohort 4. I have an SSL certificate generated for api.cohort4.com. And the way that I did that is I simply went in, request. I took my domain name, I prepended API to it. Same thing, hit request. So for your backend, go into certificate manager, and I'll paste this link. Go into certificate manager and request a certificate for your backend, API dot whatever. And then I'm just going to jump ahead. So once you've requested that certificate, what do? Well, the same thing that we had to do with the previous SSL certificates. We have to prove that we own API dot domain name. How do we do that? What do we do to prove that we own the domain? Does anybody remember?
Go to Namecheap.
Right. You go to whoever, Namecheap if you bought your domain there. Google Domains if you bought it there, Route 53 if you bought it in AWS. You go wherever your domain is hosted, and you create those records again. So like for my certificate, I needed to go to my Namecheap, and I needed to create a record, a CNAME record with this name and this value. And after 15-20 minutes, the light goes green, and I've proven to Amazon that I own the certificate.
Nathan, for my capstone, I don't think I ever set that link up. So I have the domain name, but I don't think I ever did anything with it, like CNAMEs and all that stuff.
Oh, okay. So the do you want to go through that right now?
If it's not taking up too much time.
Yeah, let's go through it. Have you done the front end?
I have done nothing with the front end or the back end. I did when I presented a graduation was from my computer, local.
Oh, okay, I see. So actually, instead of doing it in class, I'm going to point you to the slides for setting this up. And then if you hit any snags, then we can work on it. Does that sound fair?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So for the front end, starting around slide 53, and I'll post this in. Starting around line 53, this is where you would set up the front end, and then slide 68 is where you set up the back end. So both of those links are in Zoom.
Thank you.
Yep. And then I'll just set a reminder to come back and talk about that.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
When do you do invalidations? Is that a quick question?
Yeah. So a CloudFront invalidation. Does anybody know when you would run a CloudFront invalidation?
You upload new code in the front end.
Exactly. What does CloudFront do? CloudFront is a CDN, so it's taking all of your code and it's distributing it to all the data centers. So when you upload front end code to your S3 bucket, that's when you would run the invalidation. So you go into CloudFront, find whichever of your distributions you're using, the invalidations, and then /* to clear everything out. Did I answer your question, Chrissy?
Yeah, I knew what to do, but I wanted it on the recording.
Cool.
Can I add a note here? So
Yeah.
because of the way that most front-end frameworks work, and this is like for everything we've talked about in careers and code, this is going to apply. If you were to just sort of like write some HTML and JavaScript in a file, it may not apply, but I'm just going to put this out there, maybe let it be food for thought. So when you build something with like Create React App, have you ever noticed how in the build folder, all the scripts and style sheets and all that have that, it's like the name of it, dot, then like a random string of letters and numbers, then sort of the file extension. Like they sort of insert that random string in there. And the reason why they do that is because what that allows you to do, okay, it looks like maybe Nathan's got an example I can show, which will be good. But the reason why they do that is because it means that every time you deploy your app, the script locations and the style sheet locations, yeah, there we go. They're hosted at a different location. So like if I deploy my app one time, like sort of starting with like an empty S3 bucket, I deploy my app. My apps, like all the files that I deploy are going to be in there. Then I deploy my app again. What's going to happen is all the files in the S3 bucket, it's going to be the combination of both deploys. It's going to have all the old files and the new files. And the only thing that's actually pointing towards like what file you want to use is index.html. So like in that index.html, Nathan, if you could open that up and sort of go to like the script tags and style tags in there or whatever. But like it's sort of pointing at those, yeah. So it's like pointing at main.168c8, all that stuff, and then main.7536, all that sort of stuff. So in fact, with something like Create React App, kind of by design, you only ever actually have to invalidate index.html because sort of everything else is sort of all the dependencies behind the scenes are sort of handled for you. And why this is kind of nice, like you're probably wondering, like, well, I'm just gonna, this S3 bucket is just gonna keep growing in size forever. Like, why do we want that? Like, wouldn't you want to delete everything each deploy? And it's a good question. And the reason why this is kind of cool is if you think about the way the web works, there's a lot of caching on the web. So if you were to deploy your app and someone's web browser, they made a request to like get slashed, and they sort of like in the past had gotten back like an old version of index.html, and they sort of reload the page and reload it using their local cache, then it means that they're going to get all those old files and not the new files until they sort of reload and their browser refetches the new index.html and gets all the new locations. So I don't know. I feel like I kind of went down a path here, but hopefully that was helpful. It's something that like it's a good behavior to understand. And that's sort of like why you only ever really have to invalidate the index.html.
So if you delete the files each time and then put the new files in, you still need to do the invalidation, right?
If you were to delete the files each time and put everything in there, you would still need to do the invalidation, yes, because sort of everything on CloudFront sort of has the old cache data in it. But putting that aside for a second, generally it's a bad idea, because if you did something like, let's say you had the app loaded on your computer, and then you deleted everything in the bucket and published your latest stuff, and you then reloaded the app on your computer, it might not work. And the reason why it might not work is because you have sort of still locally the cached index.html, which is sort of pointing at all the old assets. So that's why you typically want to make it append only, like you only ever add stuff to that bucket.
So we don't need to delete them. It would overwrite them, or it would clear the old cache and then add the new one, or how?
Yeah, let me just mention we've deleted everything in class. So that's actually a good reason why once you I think that you do want to do what Ryan's describing, which is the append just uploading files and not deleting the old ones. But the reason why I've been encouraging us to delete everything and invalidate everything is because right now we're making kind of sweeping changes, replacing things, shuffling stuff around, and I think that that's totally acceptable at the beginning when you're working on your code and you're working on your website. But like Ryan's pointing out, yeah, you would want to continue to drag and drop files instead of deleting the bucket beforehand, because you want to retain those old versions for folks that still have cached versions of your website in the browser. That's a really good point.
And the idea with that is it's better for them to load an old file than no file.
Than no file at all. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and this is why, like, sometimes when you build your app, you have to take into account that the user might be running an older version. So if you do something like, for example, remove a field from an API endpoint that an older version of that app requires, then you're like, oh crap, this old app breaks. So this sort of gets like, this maybe exposes why some of those like REST API rules end up being so critical.
Backwards compatibility. Yeah.
Backwards compatibility. And also, I didn't realize, Nathan, you were saying to delete everything.
That's okay. No, it's a good point that I hadn't considered.
Not to be overly concerned about pennies, but if you just keep adding to your bucket, do you end up paying for all? Like, is the size difference enough that it would even add up to pennies?
Well, I think it's like a couple of cents per gigabyte a month. So I mean, you'd have to be pushing quite a few builds, I think, for
right
to get the gig.
So unless you have really big files, it wouldn't really register. It wouldn't make a big difference.
Right.
Yeah. I'll say for context, if you want like a real world example, at Density, and Nathan, you might be able to fact check me on this if you remember anything from back then, but we had like maybe 150 static sites deployed, and it was maybe costing like $150 a month, if that, like probably more like 100. So like that, we're not talking about that much money. And it's also the other thing too, where you can set up a policy in S3 where after 30 days it'll delete files, and that could be an option as well. But really what you want to do, like you can, it's sort of, you play to the probabilities a bit here. Like after 30 days, it's probably likely that someone's local cache would have expired and they'd fetch the latest thing anyway. And you could configure that if you want to really sure that was going to happen. But yeah, it does end up being a little bit of pinching pennies for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So let's do a quick talk about databases, and then we're going to jump into the GitHub Actions, and then that just kind of leaves us with whatever fun stuff we want to get into. Let's talk about the databases. So, Kyle, you wanted to talk a little bit about, well, actually,
I don't actually need, I mean, I just, in order to have something follow along and deploy and connect the front end to the back end, I don't have a functional back end deployed at this point, but I can just watch. I don't really need to.
Well, let's save time at least for the end for Python, because I'm interested to see how that works. Well, okay, then let's talk, Doug. Let's talk about transferring files from one to the other. I don't have an elegant solution for that, and the reason why I don't is because Beekeeper is awful, and it has. Let's see. So I have a database on my computer, and I have, I don't know. Let's switch to
I guess I don't want to be a jerk, Nathan, but can't you just PG dump it?
You can totally PG dump it. I was going to try to do it the Beekeeper way, and I just want to. So I have a Django app here. I'm just going to try to find something that actually has valid files in it. No, none of these do. None of these are going to have. Oh, here we go. All right, so I have a table called posts. So what you can do, Doug, if you want to export from one to another, what you can do is find the table that you want to export. Right click on it, export, and export it as SQL. This is important because Beekeeper doesn't have a way to import. So this is a beta feature for Beekeeper. So you have to export it as SQL, otherwise there's not a easy way to import. But all right, so making sure that we export it as SQL, we can run and I'm gonna open that file. Here we go. So here's that SQL file that it generated, and from this you can then take all of the SQL statements, copy them, go over to whatever the database is. So I'm gonna reopen Beekeeper, but this time I'm going to open up my RDS database, which I believe I've shut this database down, so it's probably not going to connect. But either way, open up whatever the database is where you want the files to go, and then in whatever console that Beekeeper gives you, just paste in all those SQL statements. So we're going to run the raw SQL to insert each of these posts.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So are you opening up a database that's hosted online? I've only ever used Beekeeper locally.
Oh, okay. In this case, I am, but if you wanted to connect to your Amazon database, it's pretty easy. To do so, you just go into AWS.
And is this how you would do it if you wanted to take a local database and upload it to your project online?
Yeah. So you need to sign into your database in AWS, and to do that, you need to go to RDS, which is where each of your databases are hosted, and find whatever the database is that you want to connect to. And there is an endpoint here. You can see on my screen, I have this endpoint. So I'll open up Beekeeper and I'll create a new connection. New connection, Postgres. Grab that endpoint, paste it in under the host. Make sure SSL is turned on. And then it's going to want a user and password. I have no idea what the password is for my database. Hopefully you know what yours is.
At least there used to be, I don't know if this is still the case, but I think in the upper right of that page, there's like a button you can click that'll give you the connection URI pre-generated.
Oh,
I might be wrong.
set up EC2 connection.
No, maybe I'm wrong. I heard there's a way to
Can
do
I
that
exist?
somewhere.
Doug, that's slide 73 too, for anybody else. Isn't that slide 73, Nathan?
Slide 73. Yes, it is. This is specifically for this is specifically for setting it up for Beekeeper. Yep.
Great.
So I don't actually know what my password is because I've forgotten it. I know I have it in 1Password, but I don't really want to pull it out. But anyways, that's how you would set up the connection in Beekeeper. And then it's the same sort of thing. You take those SQL lines that you generated when you did the export, you paste them into the console for your AWS database.
Okay, thank you.
One really important thing though is by default, your RDS database is completely firewalled off. So slide 72 is really important. You need to go in and create a hole in your firewall to be able to reach your AWS database. And this just makes sense. Like you don't want to have a database out exposed on the internet that anybody can log into. So to check out that slide, but the gist of it is that there's these security groups. And the one thing that you have to do is go in and create a rule on the inbound rules page that allows you to be able to reach it on port 5432. So it allows you to log in and reach the database. That is that's also on that slide there.
This is just, Nathan, I'm curious, probably no one else is going to understand what I'm saying here, but like, how does the Elastic Beanstalk work? Does it have a bastion, or is it just like a VPC with stuff in it that you got to punch holes through yourself?
There's not a bastion for this. This is me directly reaching into RDS.
Okay.
I know that hasn't always been the case, and you've needed bastions in the past. I don't know what has changed, but since I've started, well, since the beginning of last year, I've been able to reach RDS instances directly just by adding a rule.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, for the longest time, yeah, the only way you were even able to resolve this name, right, it was by being within the VPC, because even the name wasn't resolvable outside of the VPC.
Yeah. I mean, I bring it up just because, like, if there's a way to summon SSH tunnel, that might be a more secure way, but whatever. It's probably not that.
That's a fair point, but because we're using Elastic Beanstalk to provision our EC2 instances, we don't even have the SSH key for these EC2 instances. When you were asking before, well, can we just get into the EC2 instances to see what's going on? I don't actually know because
it's like
because
Lambda,
when you use Elastic, when you use Elastic
Hybrid.
Beanstalk, it's just spinning up cloud formation templates behind the scenes. I don't know where the SSH key is, to be honest.
Okay.
This is one of those lovely 10 layers of abstraction, all this magic that you just have to accept. Speaking of magic, let's talk about well, actually, before we jump into GitHub Actions, Alba, you had a question about the database. Is there something that I can answer with regards to RDS databases?
I just started a new project today, like early this morning, and I was
Mhm.
the database and everything. The database showed that it went through, but then my console said that it either didn't recognize it, so I think there's like a name wrong.
Do you want to share your screen and show us?
Hmm. It's not letting me share screen 3. Let me just reshare it.
Okay.
Nathan, once you take care of everybody's concerns, if we have time, can you double back to me? Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep.
Can you see my code?
Yep.
I gotta open another file. This is the best one.
Okay, so this is the new backend. Got it. It is bound on port 3001. That's going to be a so on 125.
So
Yes.
in my beekeeper, this showed up like it went through,
Mhm.
but when let me start. So it crashed right now.
It's crashing because you've got something else running on 3001.
Yeah, my other code.
All right, just Control C here again, and let's just do let's find out what's running on that port. So Control C, LSOF is the command, space -I space colon 3001.
Colon.
Is right next to the L key. So that is a semicolon if you give us the There you
Colon,
go, 3001. So this says, tell me all the ports that are listening on 3001. Okay. Do a kill -9. So kill space -9 space. And then let's do that PID 10575. So we're saying kill the process with this PID. So 10575. 10575. All right, so whatever was listening on that is now dead. Let's run. Yep. Cool. Server's running and it's executing queries. This looks good.
so let me change something here so I could.
For curiosity's sake, are you doing some freelance work already?
Oh, this is my son has a studio. He records music and stuff, and I'm just playing around so I could practice for.
Nice.
So I don't know what's going on with the website, but if you click back to the browser and look at the network tab in the browser.
Yep.
And refresh here.
Refresh.
Just refresh the page, yep. And then scroll down in this box. Sorry. Scroll down, like you could put focus here, click up there, then scroll down. No,
Gotta make the
Yeah.
panel higher. It's goofy.
try raising that. Scroll all the way out. Yep, no, just raise that panel. Let's see. Like Ryan's saying. All right, refresh. Let's try this again. You've got fetch XHR. It looks like you're not making any API calls. What if you switch that over to the all? So you're definitely, wait, so you're making, oh, that's the WebSocket for the dev server. Scroll up. Is there anything in this? Scroll up in there. I don't see your code making any HTTP requests. What is the server doing right now? It's got a artist table. So do you have any endpoints that expose any of the results from artists? Looks like you've got one up here. So scroll up in this code. Let's just see if you have like a /artist endpoint. Should you scroll up? You've got stuff for creating new ones, and then, oh, here we go. Here's a artist. So let's go back to the browser. Oh, nice. And then it would be not food bank update, but
Yeah, artist.
wait, so we're finding the artist by primary key. We're assigning it to a box called post. Would you agree? Alba?
Mhm.
Okay, so post contains the artist that you're looking for, and then instead of sending artist,
Send post.
we should send post, right? I think we're going to see the same issue up here. But in this case, it's not post, it would be the box you're referencing before post. So then let's go back over to the browser and let's see if you go to navigate to localhost 3001/artist. 3001 because that is the back end. Yep. Oh, enter. And there it is. There's some back end data for you. And it looks like, according to the change that you just made, it looks like the address updated correctly.
I took out New York.
On Trinity Records, I think you changed that. There's that white space there.
So now that I'm getting a response from it, is that just automatically now going into my database? Well, that's how I had it before, so.
We are getting artists out of your database. That's what that request is.
Yeah, it's supposed
Okay.
to just to generate automatically, but it's not doing that, but I'll figure it out.
Well, if you go back to the artist page that you just clicked on, it looked like it looked like I don't know what your front end code is doing, but it looks like if you make that box a little bit bigger in the network inspector, it looked like it made a call to oh, it made a call to sessions. It didn't make a call to if you click on, yeah. So I think you've got a little bit of work. Here it's making a call to 3001 Trinity artist, but you are your back end isn't /Trinity artist, it's just /artist.
Okay. All right, I can fix that.
Cool. All right, let's that is it for the database stuff, unless anybody has something else they want to talk about with the database. Otherwise, we've got GitHub Actions, circling back to Larry, and Python stuff. Okay, let's switch back to well, let's do the GitHub Actions real quick. So yeah, we've been doing the longhand calculus. I'm going to show you how to do the shorthand, and that is there's obviously some things that you have to do in order to automate these deploys. Let me show real quickly what that is. Here we go. Okay. So it's GitHub Actions. If you haven't ever worked with GitHub Actions, let me give a quick rundown of what GitHub Actions does. If you recall back in our, if you recall back when we were working on our portfolios, GitHub Actions was that cool green check mark, yellow circle that was handling the deploys to GitHub pages. So we would commit and push, and then all of a sudden it would be ready on GitHub. And we could check the status of our deploys to GitHub pages by coming to GitHub and looking for this green check mark. If we didn't have a green check mark, then we knew something was broken with our portfolio deploys. So GitHub Actions is what's powering this check mark. It's what's it's the machinery that you can it's the machinery that you can tell GitHub what to do when you push code. You can get it to scan your code for security vulnerabilities. You can get it to run tests for you. You can get it to do deploys for you. You can get GitHub to do pretty much anything, so long as you write the code for it. So one of the really cool things we can do is we can get GitHub, whenever we push our code, we can get GitHub to go and do all the button clicking and all of the stuff that we've been doing, like zipping things, npm run build, invalidating the CloudFront cache, like all of those little pieces that we've had to manually do, we can automate. and it will save us just a tremendous amount of time. But there's a one-time cost. There's a setup cost to this, and it revolves around. Well, I'll just show you. I'll stop talking. Let's just do this. So the way that you set up these automated deploys is front end and back end. So we're going to break it up into 2 steps. And this is one of those things that you have to do for each project that you want to work on. But let's start with the front end, because the front end is a little bit easier. So if we want to automate,
Did we use GitHub Actions in cohort 2? Because I'm just looking at my various portfolios, and the only one I have a green check mark on is the one that's actually deployed through GitHub. That's like vanilla JavaScript front end.
yeah. So you are using GitHub Actions if you're deploying to GitHub Pages. So we definitely used it because for the first week that I teach, we always start with GitHub Pages. So definitely everybody's used GitHub Actions. Did we automate the Heroku through GitHub Actions? A couple people did. I remember doing that in class.
I think that the only thing I did with that website during Careers in Code was like Max had us publish some generic picture, like prefab website on like, I don't know, the first week or something like that, or sometime in April. And then I went back after Careers in Code and made it my own. So I don't think we did that, but anyway, we can come back to how to get that green check mark maybe.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're about to go through that. No, I know I made it optional because, and the reason why I made it optional is because Heroku was so easy. It was git push Heroku main. Like that's I don't know. It was easy. So there really wasn't a strong, compelling argument to automating it with GitHub Actions. But anyways, so how do we do it with how do we automate all the AWS stuff? Well, let's start with the front end. So I'm going to go and I'm going to pick my capstone front end. No, I'm not. I'm going to go and pick one of my front ends. And because this is through GitHub, we have to do everything in a Git repo if we want to automate things. So you need to have your front end inside of a Git repo to get our Git stuff working again. We need to open up GitHub Desktop and make sure that we have our front end repo selected. So I'm going to go and get my front end. All right, so I'm looking at my front end code here, and I actually have the VS Code. So I'm going to open up VS Code. All right. So would people agree that this looks like a pretty normal Create React app? I've got a package JSON, got an SRC with some stuff in it. This looks like a pretty normal React app here. All right.
Yeah, but
So
no modules, right?
No modules. That can be fixed though. Okay. Now I got node modules. All right. So now this looks like a regular Create React app. All right. To start using GitHub Actions, there's a couple pieces of magic that you just have to accept. The first piece of magic is all of your GitHub Actions must live in a folder called .github. So from the root of your front end project, create a new folder called .github. This just means that it's a special folder that GitHub's going to look at. It's similar to .gitignore, to Docker ignore, to all those. It's package JSON. Now all those things have to be named exactly. It's the same thing. GitHub Actions has to have .github, and then inside the .github folder, we have to create a subfolder called workflows. So we're creating a .github at the top, And then inside of that folder called workflows. And then inside of that, you can put anything you want. It just has to be what's called a YAML file. Has anybody not heard of a YAML file? Anybody not familiar with YAML?
Not familiar with it, but I've heard the extension before.
So you've heard JSON, right? JSON is a form of, is a structure for encoding. It's a specification, right? It has this fun key value syntax. Everything has a comma at the end.
Quotes. The
Quotes.
are finicky, then I think they have to be all double quotes or something like that.
Yep. And there's only certain types of, anyways, you're familiar with JSON. YAML is like JSON, except that it's a different encoding. It's a different standard. And you've probably seen it before. The way that you create a YAML file is you just create a new file. And what I'm going to call my file, it doesn't matter so long as it has .yaml at the end. What I'm going to call mine is deploy.yaml, because I'm going to put instructions in here for how to deploy to AWS. And that's it. So we are technically starting to write our first GitHub action, and the action goes inside this folder. The question is, what in the world do we put in here? Well, this is the second part where you must accept a bunch of magic. The magic for deploying to AWS is on the slides here, starting around line 80. I've got a big section of code right here. I'm actually going to copy and paste, not from that slide, but I have that same code here inside of a Git repo. So I'm just going to steal all of that code, and then we can talk about it here in a sec. So this funky syntax, instead of like JSON, where you have quotes and commas and braces and all this and that, with YAML, the way that it's broken up is it's broken up by tabs, kind of like Python. And so you can look at this, and that's how the YAML encoding works, is it's kind of broken up into these funky, but I just have to be honest, a lot of this is magic. Like a lot of what you see in this YAML file, I cobbled from tutorials on the internet. What's happening in here is we're checking out our code. So we're having the GitHub machine check out our code. We're setting up Node at version 12 dot something. So just like our computers run Node in order to npm install and all of that, we have to have GitHub do the same thing, because GitHub is going to run all of these instructions in this file. So what's happening here? Checking out our code. Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Is there any particular reason why the node version is 12 dot something, or you can pick whatever version you want?
You can pick whatever version you want, and I would probably choose whatever version you have specified in your package JSON. Right now, I don't have one specified at all, but you probably want to have it somewhere close to what your computer is using. So if I go and do node version, I'm using 18.7. I'm using the version way behind. So maybe I'll bump that up to 18. I'm going to leave it at 12 though, because I know this works. I want to show a working example before I start hacking on this.
For what it's worth, 12 is kind of deprecated these days. You should really use at least 16 these days.
Ryan says 16. I'm going to trust him. 16.
Oh no, I'm going to be why this thing breaks. Thanks.
So go ahead.
In slide 80 is where the YAML code is at.
Yes. And if you want a more copy pastable, friendly version of this, I just added a link there, and then I'll also post the same thing in chat. That is a good point, Ryan. YAML being a superset of JSON, I would agree. It has more features, and I think it has more bugs as well.
It actually is a superset. Like if you put JSON in a YAML file, it'll compile.
I can put YAML inside of JSON.
No, I mean, like if you put JSON, this is pedantic, but like if you just took JSON and you put it in the file, it would work. Like it actually is a superset in the spec.
I can write JSON directly in my YAML file. That sounds
Yeah.
awful.
You could, I mean, if you wanted to go through the exercise, you could take JSON, slowly remove features, and get to YAML, and each intermediate step would compile.
Oh, I can't put braces in here. I can't paste it into JSON.
You can.
No way.
You can. It's like
Oh.
Ruby. Like everything works.
But what parser is going to
Like no, it's
accept
a
it?
spec. Like you have to support it.
Huh. Okay. Oh, I learned something new today. That's crazy. Okay, so what's going on here? So this is setting up Node in GitHub Actions, and because GitHub Actions are completely different computers from our machine, we have to have a version of Node installed. So this is installing Node at 16 something. It's running npm install because these are brand new machines. This is GitHub Actions, brand new computers. It's going to get our Node modules, and then npm run build. We have to do that every time to generate that build folder. And then we will skip ahead a little bit. All right, here's where the bulk of the magic is happening. So somebody named Jake Jarvis came up with a GitHub action that allows us to sync files from GitHub action to S3 buckets. We're just using his code. That's really all I can tell you about this S3 sync action. Other important things about it. In order for this code to run, in order for this GitHub action to run, we have to provide it with a couple of things. We have to tell it, okay, where should the build folder get uploaded to? And then more importantly, what credentials should I use to log in and authenticate? And remember, these are kind of the scary keys that if these fall into the wrong hands, they can run up our AWS bills. But they're necessary because GitHub Actions has to somehow log in and upload things to the S3 bucket. So we have to give it something in order to be able to log in there. All right, and then
That's
down here
just your file path, right? Secrets dot, that's just the file path to where you're storing the variable, like that's a variable.
it is a variable, and I will show you how to set these.
Okay.
And then down below, we have the code to, after we do the S3 upload, so what we've been manually doing, where we run build, we copy things into the S3 bucket. This is doing that automatically. And then down here, this is creating that CloudFront distribution. Notice here, it's got the /* where it's invalidating all the files. This is a computer going in and pressing that button for us. So it's going in and given some CloudFront distribution ID and some set of login credentials, some set of keys, it's going in and doing that for us. Now to get to Kyle's question, how do we specify these secrets? How do we put values into here? Well, I'll tell you the wrong way of doing this. The wrong way would be to come in here and to say, this is Nathan's bucket, and the key ID is, and pasting in my key. And this would be the wrong way of doing this, right? Because if I just paste my values into this code, and then I go back to Git, this is going to get tracked in source control. And then we're back where Ryan was talking about, where people will be able to see our repo and be able to pick up our keys, be able to run off and start Bitcoin mining. That would be a problem. So what's happening here is, instead of putting our credentials and putting our bucket and all of these things in this YAML file for anybody in the world to be able to see, instead, we're going to reference some magic secrets. And these magic secrets are, you can get to by going to whatever the repo is that you're using to build your front end. And under the settings page, similar to where we went when we were working with GitHub Pages. So instead of this, instead of the pages section, we're going to go down to the security section for secrets and variables. And there's a special actions section. And you'll notice here, I've got a bunch of secrets defined. These secrets map one-to-one with each of the variables in the code. If I put these side by side, you'll see that, again, zoom out just a little bit. You'll see that secrets.aws s3 bucket, sure enough, I've got one. AWS access key ID, sure enough, I've got one. So each of these I'm mapping one-to-one with a secret here in GitHub. How did I create these? I go up to repository secret. I create S3 bucket. AWS S3 bucket is the name of the variable, and I put in, my bucket. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was thinking that was just like you had maybe a get ignored file somewhere on in your repo on your computer, and that was like a variable that somehow linked. I was wondering about secrets dot, instead of slashes, like a file path, or I figured you had those variables set up somewhere else in the program where it was pulling them out of a file. So this is cool. I've never seen this before. It seems like an easier way to do it. So
right, you do it in the settings page for GitHub. So GitHub holds on to the secrets, and then it looks in the code whenever it encounters dot whatever section. GitHub goes and looks in its secrets registry and gets them.
And that's probably just as secure as keeping it on your computer and getting, like, it is online, but somebody would have to hack into your account in order to get that. So
yeah, and I'm assuming that they also solved this with some kind of secret that I control. So I don't even think GitHub, well, I take that back. GitHub has to know how to decrypt it if they're running on their machines.
right.
If you hit one of those pencil icons, it'll let you see it, or can you only delete it or update it? You know what I mean?
It's only going to let me update.
Okay.
Just
But
out
I
of
did click on
curiosity,
CloudFront distribution because I wasn't 100% sure. Go ahead.
just out of curiosity, if you did want to, reference a variable there that was like in your code or in a get ignored file or whatever, I'm just trying to think, how would you do like the import of that into a YAML file? Because I'm not familiar.
Oh, I don't.
Is that
think
not?
you
Should we
can.
not even bother with that? I can Google it
I
later.
wouldn't try it. I would try, and I don't know of a way in YAML directly to include other files. I don't think you can.
Okay.
But I didn't know you could put JSON in YAML, so I don't know.
How would you get the secret from the AWS bucket?
Yeah, so for the AWS S3 bucket, this is simply the bucket that you're storing your files in. So to get that, you would go to AWS. Go to S3. And then wherever you've been putting your front end code, that's going to be the name. So grab the name of your bucket, set that as your AWS S3 bucket. Good question. And then for the CloudFront distribution.
So you can call those whatever, right? When you set them up.
Yes, if you're in control of how you reference it here in the YAML. I pick
Just gonna
these
put secrets dot and then whatever you put for the thing that you set up on the other screen you were just showing on AWS.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want to call it AWS bucket instead of AWS S3 bucket, just make sure that you have a corresponding secret called AWS bucket. Yeah, you're in control of that, all of that.
That's what I figured. Cool.
But I think I mentioned this on the slides. The AWS CloudFront distribution in my example is that ID that you get on the distribution page, and then the S3 bucket is just the name of the S3 bucket that you've been using. If you have all of that.
So what would the ID and key view? Is that your password to get into AWS?
So the access key ID and the secret access key, these are the so you had an access key and a secret access key. that you gave me at the beginning of class. Do you remember slacking me those? That would work. Alternatively, didn't we set up a machine IAM user last class?
Yes.
So you can use either one of those two. If you don't have either of them, you can go back into IAM. If you don't remember them, you can regenerate them. So back in IAM, which you can get to by searching for IAM. Back in IAM, you can go to
The
users.
key that you asked us to keep because we're gonna need later on in the future. You
Say
told
what?
us to
Sorry?
keep a copy of the key. Is that what I'm
Yes.
supposed to do there?
Yep.
The key, and what would the ID be?
So remember that you had two things that you need to save. You had an access key and a secret key. Do you it shouldn't just be one. Are you seeing something different?
I remember only like it's
Okay.
key or something.
So let me run through an example here real quick. So I'm going to create a user with administrator access. Create this user. So if you go to IAM, you can get these credentials. If you go to IAM and let me paste this link into Zoom chat. So here's how you get to, or rather, here's the link to IAM. If you click into IAM and go to the users page, you should see a list of users. Do you see that?
Users page. Yeah, I have you.
Just me?
Yep.
Well, click on me and we can use my the user that you created for me. Click on them, and then once you're looking at that user, permissions, groups, tags, go to security credentials, and then create access key. It's like the third box middle of the screen. Create access key. You see that?
Create.
It's right about here on the screen. It's right below the MFA.
Yep. So in the access keys, create.
Yeah. Create access key, select command line interface, check the box. If it asks you to set a tag, just ignore that. Then you should get an access key and a secret access key.
I have to create it, right?
You should, yeah, hit create. Do you see two things now? You don't see like what's on my screen. You don't see like an access key and a secret access key.
No.
What's it saying?
When I put command line interface, and then I gotta click I understand above recommendations.
Mhm.
I click next, and then it's asking me to create a.
It's asking you to put a tag in. Just ignore that. Hit the create access key.
All right.
So access key is the one on the left. That's the one that you want to go into this AWS access key ID variable. And then the other one, the secret access key, that's what you want to go into the AWS secret access key box. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Now I'm going to go and scrub these keys.
You're not going to give the warning I always give Nathan in my class where I'm like, hey, so I'm generating a token. I'm saying this because this thing's recorded, but like someone could use this to access my account right now and delete it right after the class. So don't even try, suckers.
I normally do, but I don't need to because you just did it for me. Thank you.
Sounds good.
And I deleted it just now so I wouldn't forget. The last couple times I've been doing this, I've literally taken a sticky note and put it on the middle of my screen so I don't forget. But after today, I'm actually going to go and physically delete my AWS account because I still don't trust trust what I've shared on screen thus far. Okay. Once you have these 4 variables created, the CloudFront distribution, the S3 bucket, the AWS Access Key ID, all of that, when you go into GitHub Desktop, it should show that you're creating a new file, which is great.
Nate, excuse me, this is Latonia. If we don't use the desktop, can we just do our add commit push? Just do our regular
Totally.
flow?
Yeah, totally. With whatever works for you, please just commit and push, because we have to get that YAML file committed to our repo in order for GitHub Actions to run. After that, you're done. All you have to do from here on out to make front end changes, you don't have to do run build, you don't have to do uploading drag and drop to S3 or CloudFront or any of that stuff. You don't have to do any of that anymore. All you have to do is make some kind of change to your code like you're normally developing. So I'm going to go and change my, change my index.html. Let's say cohort 4. I'm going to change the title to cohort 4. I've got some kind of code change. Updating the title. All I have to do is push, and I can go and check on the progress of my upload by going to my repo and clicking on my repo. I've got that yellow dot now, so code is actually running. I can click on it and see what's happening. Here's that file that we just created, that build.yaml. I can click into it and see the details. It's running through each of those steps that we declared in that YAML file. So it's running through. Latonia, these are all actually Docker images behind the scenes. That's why some of this probably looks a little bit familiar, like these steps. Everything is actually being run inside of a Docker container, but it's running through that YAML file, that big magic YAML file. It's running through that one by one, executing each of the instructions in there. So all we have to do is just wait for this to push to S3 and invalidate CloudFront, and we're done. We can go and visit our website, and the deploy will be completely finished from the front end.
It's worth mentioning as well, this isn't going to delete everything in the S3 bucket, the way this is hooked up right now. So it's going to just append constantly to that S3 bucket, and then practice is probably fine, but like you should know that's what's going on.
Yeah, that's a good point. If we go and look at the YAML file, I am using an S3 sync, which is just taking all the changes. Oh, sorry, Ryan, this is actually doing a delete.
It is. Ah, okay. I take my
So
word
it's doing a delete beforehand, and then it's uploading the files to the S3 bucket. If you wanted to change that behavior, I'm guessing you would just drop the -- delete.
Yeah.
In the code.
I'd say for any app with significant usage, you should seriously consider switching that around, but to each their own.
Now my GitHub action failed, and that's because I deleted my account and I deleted the credentials because I didn't want those to be in the recording. So that's why mine is failing. But
one of the secrets that you have to put in,
Mhm.
put it in and it doesn't show up, it's showing 3, not 4.
It's showing what?
3, not 4.
3, not 4.
The
What do you mean?
access key ID, the CloudFront distribution, and the S3 bucket. The other one I put it in, but it's not showing up, the access key ID.
It's not showing up. Oh, did you create the secret in, okay, and you put the value in for it, right? Okay, and
But
then
it's-
did you sorry?
But it's not showing up in the repository and the,
So make sure that you commit and push that YAML file. So make sure you don't have the keys on your screen at all.
no, I don't have anything that has
Okay.
the.
Can you just share your screen and show us? Cool. All right,
So-
scroll down a little bit. So you've got an access key ID. We need a secret access key. So scroll up. Create new repository secret. Okay, and then inside of name, that's going to be, yep, it's going to be that secret access key, AWS secret access key. So grab that. Perfect. Yep, paste. All right, and then over on, don't show me, but over on the IAM management console, it's the one that has all the stars on it. So you'll click show to see.
Not
Oh,
showing.
did you copy those values down somewhere?
I believe I have it copied in the, let me just unshare,
Let
because
me-
I still on my.
Yeah. Okay.
Nate, this is Latonia. This is another quirky question. At some point during class, you told folks not to use the copy key because it was adding in stuff. Do you remember that? What was the use case around that, or am I misremembering?
That was back. There's like links that you can click. That was back when we were setting up DNS records. There was a button you could click, and if you clicked it, it would grab HTTPS:// which for the DNS records, we didn't want that. So what I was telling folks to do was to grab the URL that was on the screen minus the HTTPS part. There was not a security thing. I mean, copy and paste secret keys to your heart's content. That was not.
I didn't have it, so do I need to create another?
Oh yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There, when you get to that final page, there's a
Where was it?
additional.
Was users? Add
Yeah,
new-
click it. IAM users. You can click on the existing user and go to the security credentials and create a new set of security credentials. Okay. I'm sorry, Alba. You're gonna have to delete that other GitHub secret for the access key and replace that one as well.
Yeah, I gotta match the access
Yep.
key and the other one. I think I still have it here in the create access key from 8 minutes ago.
When you generate new credentials, the old one will be
It's not allowing me to click create access key is actually grayed out.
oh,
And the key is still there.
right. Let's see.
Now, but after you create it, there's an option to download the .csv file so you can have it on your computer.
Okay. It says edit description or deactivates.
There should be a way to create an additional. I'm just getting caught back to where you are. All right, there's that. Continue. It's grayed out, you said.
Yes.
Let me share my screen. Well, if you don't have anything pulled up, can you just share your screen and show us?
Sure. All it says is a description. It doesn't really.
Yeah, so there's the old one. Just refresh this page. There's just AWS being AWS. Refresh. All right, scroll down. Pull out of the create access key. Oh, it's still grayed out. All right, maybe it's just because there's the old ones. So let's deactivate the old ones. Click on actions for that key. Deactivate, yep. Deactivate. Scroll down. Same thing for yeah, deactivate that one too. Cool. And then let's click on actions again. You have to deactivate before you can delete. So click back on click back on the actions down here again. Switch to delete. And then just paste in that access key again. And, yep. All right. Refresh. It should be enough to just delete the. Oh, there you go. Yep. Great. Yep. Great. CLI. Yep. That whole thing. Download the CSV like Larry suggested, and that will make sure we have both of those.
For what it's worth, Nathan, I seem to remember there being a restriction around how many access keys an IAM user can have.
Yeah, it appears like 2 is the limit.
I thought it was
we just
3,
have-
but I guess it's 2.
While you're checking that out, Alba, I'm just gonna gloss over the back end. The back end is similar. Let me share my screen. The back end is similar, but I'm gonna let y'all take a look at this on your own time. It's the same thing. You need 4 credentials for the back end. 2 of them are going to be the same. So you'll go to your backend repo. Like for example, I'm looking at my deploy board front end repo. I'm going to go to my backend repo. And then from here, I'll go into settings, same sort of deal, settings, secrets, actions. And you'll create the repository secrets here. I have access key. These two have to be defined. And then there's 2 special ones for Beanstalk to automate the Beanstalk deploys. You have to set an application name and an environment name. These are, no surprise, these are the application and environment names you use in Beanstalk. So going to Elastic Beanstalk, we can look at the applications page and pick which application we're trying to deploy to. So this application name, Capstone Terraform, that would be my application name. At least for this repo, it's my deploy board repo. So it would be, the application name would be deploy board backend, and the environment would be deploy board backend -m. So you define those 4 variables in your GitHub secrets, and then this is the code that you would use. Just to make it a little bit easier to read, I'm gonna go and look at this version here on GitHub. See, it's similar to the front end YAML. It checks out the code, right? But then it does a little bit different. It does something a little different. It actually zips up, like what we were doing ourselves by hand. It actually zips up the code into a zip. And then there's this Beanstalk deploy action. And oh, I actually hard coded in my application and environment name. I didn't actually put a secret in there. That is what's on the slides. So my code is a little bit different. But the slides, this code that's here in this YAML, this will work with those 4 environment variables. Larry.
Yeah, the runs on Ubuntu latest. That's because it's basically creating a computer on GitHub, right?
Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
Oh.
You can specify different operating systems. You'd have to go and look at GitHub Actions to find out which ones are available. But yeah, exactly. It's running on Ubuntu.
Thank you.
Yeah. So anyways, that's how the backend works. So if you want to set up automated deploys, check out the slides. But it really boils down to define these variables, GitHub secrets, put this special file in this special place in your repo. If you do those 2 things, you'll get automated deploys. And the only thing you'll ever have to do when you want to push new code is commit and push. You don't have to go in and bind click anymore. And honestly, if you have Terraform, like what we did last week, if you have Terraform to set up your infrastructure and you have GitHub Actions to do the deploys, then you have a pretty, I think, a pretty sophisticated CI/CD pipeline where, you know, all of your infrastructure is modeled in code, and all of the deploy actions or deploy instructions are modeled in code.
So
Which is
that's
great
why
because
deploy whenever you push to GitHub, because normally we would have had to separately push to Heroku, but this is just, it automatically goes both places when you push to GitHub.
well, you still have to push to the front end to deploy the front end. You still have to push to the back end to deploy the back end.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's the same as Heroku. We still had two
Yeah.
resources. Other questions?
What is the slide for the backend?
It's right after the front end. So if you go look for the slide called automating deploys starting on 76, it starts roughly around 81 the back end.
So if you just made another, oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to.
How would I know if the front end deploy worked?
Good question. Can you share your screen? Well, not to sound super sassy, but you know it'll work because if you made a change, it would show up on the front end. But there are obviously better ways of knowing. Cool. So you've got all of those variables defined. Awesome. So have you pushed this deploy.yaml yet to GitHub?
No.
Okay, well, do this. Make a small change in your front end. Do something like change like the words or the text or just something anywhere so we can prove that this works. So like maybe home.js change something there. Food resources in Syracuse, New York. Yeah, okay, cool. And then let's commit and push. So open up GitHub desktop. GitHub saying, cool, there's a push.yaml. Oh, this is the back end. So switch to the front end. What's the blog front end? You want your nice. Cool. Yep. Let's do it. All right, to know how your deploy is doing, go view on GitHub with that view on GitHub button.
Just GitHub.
Or yep, you can go to GitHub directly, or you can click on this button right here. That will shortcut you to the repo. And then notice how there is nothing right there. You've done everything correctly. If your GitHub action is working, there should be a little something showing up right there. If there's not, it's the next place to go and look is on the actions tab. This is the whole page for actions. Yep. Click into that, scroll down a little bit. All right, so it's acting like it hasn't picked up any changes at all. Okay, go back to the previous page and let's just look real quick. .github, oh, I see the issue. We're missing a K in workflows. It's very, very picky about those two things being named exactly. So, yep. GitHub. Rename, yep. Okay. Perfect. Let's initiate another deploy. Or another push by GitHub commit and push. Yep. All right. And let's go check GitHub and refresh this page. Oh, right, because this path doesn't exist anymore. So yeah, you can reopen. Cool. Right, that works too. Capstone React, cool. Hey, there we go. There's your deploy. So it's that that gold circle. So if you want to see the raw stats, you can click onto that. Yep, click onto that, and here's your jobs. I'll click into details there, and scroll down a little bit. So we've already completed a couple of these. We're into the npm install, so this is going to take a second, but this is running your deploy for you automatically. We ran into an issue here because there is a code problem. If you open up that red X, let's see, why can't we do npm run build? So this computer is having a hard time figuring out how to get npm run build. So scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. Where's the error? Cannot resolve pantry update. So in Capstone React, Capstone source, cannot resolve pantry update. Who is importing pantry update?
It's going through Beekeeper.
No, who's importing the module pantry update? So if you search for usages of pantry update, who is trying to render the pantry update component?
I'm not
So here, an easy way to do this is if you scroll up to the top, we can grab this, put it in your clipboard, pantry update. Yep, grab that, Command C. All right, and then let's find, let's Command Shift F. So we'll search, or you can hit the little magnifying ones. Yep. All right. Who is importing pantry update? It is app.js. Trying to import pantry update. Is that the error? Is pantry update exported here in this file? In pantry update.js, is there an export at the bottom? Very, very bottom of this file. Do you ever export it?
It's been working in my code.
Export well, down here in the terminal, do an npm run build. Can you make this window bigger? I don't think I see all of the. Wait, New York Times React cannot resolve contact pantry update in Capstone React source. Can I take control for a second?
Did you send me a?
So this is the Capstone React front end. This is Capstone React. This is Capstone React. Okay, so the two of these are definitely linked up. The action that's failing here is saying that it cannot resolve contact pantry update in SRC.
Thoughts? Node version?
Is it? Oh yeah, let's just reduce variables for a second. See if that. Capstone React. Wait. Oh, this is build getting added. Let's not have the build show up in our Git changes. There we go. I feel like I'm being judged by my commit messages now. Downgrade Node.js version. Ryan, is that good enough? Do I need to be more specific from 16 to 12?
Do whatever you want, Nathan. Do whatever you
Uh,
want.
okay. But-
So is there any reason why it's saying New York Times React as opposed to Capstone React?
Yes.
Saying that because that's the name here in package JSON. Do we want to
Okay.
be a little bit more? This is Capstone. Yeah. All right. We can click on the actions tab to see recent runs. So I'm gonna click through. And then let's see what happens. We're checking out code. Installing. And then I think we've got. Larry, how is the front end and back end?
Yeah, that was what I was wondering about, because it said to copy the value from AWS and then go to Namecheap Advanced DNS and under excuse me, and under A make a CNAME. I didn't see an option A, so is that action or yeah, I didn't understand that instruction.
Okay. Well, I'm not, we got the exact same error. Cannot resolve pantry update in, and it's acting like this file doesn't exist in the Git repo. I'm gonna
So
know that it needs to. Oh, wait.
Oh,
Or-
case insensitive, Mac versus Linux.
But I didn't even notice that in it's.
It's so what happens is when you push a file to GitHub, Git isn't case sensitive. And if you rename it, it doesn't actually catch the rename in Git. So the only way to get it to catch that is to delete the file, make a commit, re-add it, make a commit. This is such a stupid design decision. I've run into this periodically.
I have
That-
never run into this. That is wild. Never seen that happen before. So we just deleted a case. Wow, I've never encountered this before. That's interesting. What's case? I just got lucky there. I really didn't think that would do anything. So it was under SRC contact and the file was called pantry update. Oops. New file. Pantry update. Yes. That is wild. All right, back to actions. Let's see what this run does. I want to mention that GitHub Actions you can pay for, but by default, the free GitHub Actions that you get is using a pool of computers. So you might run into situations where you have to wait a couple minutes. Usually, GitHub Actions is pretty quick and just kind of immediately picks up the job, but it's possible that you might run into a situation where it doesn't immediately kick off. It looks like we're trekking along, getting to the npm install. This is what usually takes the most time.
Are you gonna go into caching at all with that?
I wasn't planning on it.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about that while we're waiting on this?
I mean, so I should maybe be honest with everyone on this call that I'm not super familiar with GitHub Actions. I know enough about it to know how to be dangerous, but not enough to fix my issues usually. But most of the time with many CI providers, GitHub Actions being one of them, they give you a way you can cache information. And the idea is sort of you can store information between builds. So you can store your node modules directory, and then every run you run effectively npm install. And if you don't have new dependencies, sort of that step takes very little time, just like you were to run npm install locally with no dependency changes. So it's one of those things where these builds can end up with time taking sort of an increasingly longer and longer amount of time. And that's a thing often people try to do to make them faster. Think I covered that well enough?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, especially as your project gets bigger and more complex, the build times take more time. And caching helps to solve that. So Alba, what we're running into now is that there's just linting issues. So it's upset about these variables getting declared and never used. It's upset about the image element not having an alt prop. So it's by default, when you run npm run build on your Mac, it's not running in the strict mode. When it's running on CI, it's running with these strict checks.
Okay. I'll go in and fix those, and then hopefully I'll go through.
Okay, yeah, fix them and then do a push and let us know how it goes. All right, Larry, let's jump over and talk about the DNS records.
Just my quick
Alright.
question from before, about when you push, it automatically goes to GitHub, like just when you're pushing to back up your code or whatever. That's only for the main branch though, right? Like if you had something that you just wanted to try but didn't, and you wanted to back it up, but you didn't necessarily want to publish it, you could still like just create another branch and push it there.
Yeah, if you'll notice at the top of the YAMLs, those YAMLs, it says on push main. You
Okay,
can specify in the YAML when to trigger it.
okay, cool.
So yeah, I would leave it set to only run that
Mhm.
deploy when you push to main. But exactly, yeah, branch, experiment, and then if you like it, merge to main. And when you merge to main, you'll know it's actually going out and getting deployed. Good question. Okay.
Okay, so I'm on slide 53 on the step
Yep.
where it says advanced DNS, and under A, make a CNAME entry.
Yeah.
This was already here. This stuff was already here. CNAME and the URL redirect record was already here.
So trash these two records. And then I think that slide got edited. It's not under A, it's under add new record.
Okay, I
So
did
click the
that.
add new record button. Scroll down till you get to CNAME. Yep, host is going to be the CNAME minus the domain name. So it is, we're requesting the SSL certificate, right? So go back to the SSL certificate.
And copy the CNAME value.
Yep.
Okay, CNAME.
And we want to have all of that minus the domain name. So if you click in there and paste, is it hanging for you right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so hit wait. The reason why it hangs is it does this really silly thing. So you kind of want to paste it without the domain name, otherwise the name cheap does.
All right, so let's copy it without the. Is that what Latonia was talking about?
Yes.
Yes.
How we do this?
I think the whole page is locked up. It's really silly.
Yeah.
Yep, CNAME.
Okay, and then the target value without
It's the whole thing, whole CNAME. You don't have to do any cutting of this, just copy the whole thing. Yep.
Okay.
Green check mark for that one. And then you should have one more, right, for the www one.
Let's see. Yeah. And without the name again?
Yep, it's the same thing for both those values.
Okay. Other the same. No, not. And admin record and CNAME as well.
Yep.
And then the other one, the whole thing.
Okay,
Okay,
so
I
you've
think,
got
yeah.
those.
I mean, that was my question because it said under 8. I'm like, I don't know, I didn't see that, so that was my question as far as instruction wise. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. While you're doing this, maybe jump ahead and do the API request while you're here. So request another certificate for API dot and then whatever your domain name is. It's slide 660.
Let me
Slide
go to my other screen. This is desktop too.
Yeah, well, just so go back over and hit request certificate here on this page. And just like you have been requesting, next. Just like you've been requesting certificates for www and then your main domain name, do the same thing, but API dot and then your domain name. This will be for your backend.
All right, so this is the yeah. Is this the API then dot my URL name or just my URL
Yep.
name for full? Okay.
Cool. And then scroll down. Just for API.
So just put
Just for
API.
APIs. No, sorry, just leave the one domain name we're requesting. Remove that. Remove
Okay.
that one. We're just gonna request a one. Yep. Scroll down to the bottom and hit request. Nice. And then let's do this one real quick too. So click into that. Sorry, that's the old one, right? Yeah, this is the old one. So go back to that list page. List certificates. There it is. Yep. Click into that API one. Let's make a CNAME record for this one. So all the way up in including the .api. Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
All right. Let's go to the other screen. Got too many screens. And this is desktop 1. Add record. See that. Paste. The whole value. Paste and check box.
Perfect. Now just keep on carrying on. So if you go back to the certificate manager, eventually those will go green. When they go green, then you can set them in CloudFront and set them in Elastic Beanstalk.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I don't have anything else from the list. I don't have anything else unless other people have stuff. Kyle and I were going to talk about for folks that are interested in Python, we were going to talk about uploading a Python to Elastic Beanstalk. See, but that's just for fun. Does anybody have anything else?
Yeah, I have a quick follow-up to what Larry was just doing.
Yeah.
So if I had mydomain.com, if I wanted to make a bunch of different apps on AWS, can I make each of those an SSL that points to a subdomain? Can I have like blog.mydomain.com, capstone, and then could I have api.blog.mydomain.com?
You'll be getting into uncharted waters once you start going into beyond
Like
3.
So
yeah.
But I could say API or blog API.mydomain.com for the back end.
Yeah, there's no reason why you couldn't do blog-API or really whatever you want it. Honestly, I would keep it at that at that level where com being the root, and then having a regular domain and then a subdomain. I wouldn't go subdomain.
Gotcha.
But yes.
So as long as I'm not making something that I want to distribute and have a name brand for, I'm okay using the same domain for everything, just with subdomains.
You can use the same subdomain. I mean, like take Facebook, for example. Facebook is going to use the same domain, facebook.com, but they're going to have an API.facebook. They're going to have a telemetry.facebook. They're going to, they're going to use the same domain for, I don't know, hundreds upon thousands of different subdomains. So it's a valid pattern. It's entirely up to you how you want to use that. How you want to structure
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're
One
welcome.
more.
Albert?
Okay.
So the
So
only thing that I can't fix or haven't been able to fix is the API URL.js, assign literal to a variable before exporting as module default.
Okay. Ryan, do you want to get your word in before we jump and look at Albert's code?
Yeah. I was just gonna say that anyone who did the networking stuff with me in the past, like I'm a big fan of those top level domains of like .tk or .ml, and the reason why I like those is because there are all these like Pacific Island countries who don't really have a great way to get revenue into their country. So what they do is they use their domain prefix. Like they register their country and they're like, we want to claim this domain prefix for like some random country. And then you can actually go online and buy those domains for like pretty cheap. In the case of .tk, I forget which country it is, but they will give you up to a year of just free registration for whatever domain you want. So if you're like just playing around, you're like, I don't want to spend any money, but I want a domain, that's actually a really good option. So if you go to dot.tk, like .tk, like that's the domain I just put in chat, you can take a look at a lot of them. That's usually where I go if I want to go down that path.
Yeah, alternatively, I'll just throw out there, you can also just grab a domain for $12.99 on com and go the route of hundreds of thousands of subdomains. And that's also perfectly valid as well. Either strategy.
There's no real limit to the number of subdomains you can have. It's worth saying that.
Yeah, I mean the
Within
upper
reason.
level of pedanticism here, like I don't know how many characters you can get away with. We should know these things.
Yeah,
all right, sorry,
don't
go ahead.
probe on people, but like it should be pretty much unlimited.
So
And
go
each
ahead,
of those
Albert.
can have its own SSL certificate.
Yeah, absolutely. At that point, when you start getting that, I would just make what's called a wildcard SSL certificate, where you don't need to make a certificate for each one, but instead you make one for any certificates. But that's outside of the scope of today.
All right, that's a good subject for next time.
Yeah, I use wildcard certificates for my home lab. So, Alba, exporting a constant literal. If I can't get this, I know Brian will be able to get this. I know for a fact.
Okay.
But I want Ryan to humor me and let me try to take the first crack at it.
It's just an export that Max did for me, so I could either use the front end, the local host, or the API call, and it's just regular export default. So I'm not
export default const. We need to assign it to a variable. Export default const, and then
Can't do it like
API URL space API URL.
you got to define the variable first and then export it separately. You can't do it in one go. You only do that with named exports.
Okay. So we have to take it and put it into a box, and then we export the box. Right. So const API URL, give it the box some kind of name. API URL, all one word, just because this is the name of the variable we're declaring. And then let's store something in that box. So set it equal to that big string.
Doesn't the U have to be capital?
Doesn't have to, but it would be a good programming practice too. Yep, and then let's store that whole HTTPS API Syracuse that you've got on line 3. Let's store that big string into it. So grab everything. Yep, minus the export default, but grab that whole HTTPS API Syracuse food pantry easysearch.org. Minus the export default. We just want the string. Yep. So grab that, shove that into the box on line 1. So yep, cut that. Assign it to API URL up on line 1. Yep. And then let's export default the API URL. Yep. So we're taking the box, and that's what that variable is what we're going to export. Commit and push, and if that was the last linter error you're getting.
So I'm assuming that the original export default with the localhost address there was working. Is that just a special thing with localhost where you can do it all in one line like that? I'm just curious.
I don't think it was working.
It shouldn't be special. Like, it's just a string.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm guessing it probably wasn't working.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just curious.
Oh. Anybody else got something while we wait? All right, let me if I think we've kind of hit everything. If you want to stick around and ask other questions, feel free to. I definitely want to see if Alba's deploy finishes. But if you don't have any questions, feel free to call it here for the night. Otherwise, Kyle and I are going to look at the Python runtime for Elastic Beanstalk. Feel free to stick around for that too.
Yeah, I want to see that too.
I'm gonna, for the back end, you said there was something different that needed to be done. You
Yeah, for the back end, you
flows, the GitHub folder with the flows with the push YAML.
Mhm.
The same keys in the back.
Not the exact same keys. So take a look at slide 81. The keys kind of change a little bit in the values that go in there. 2 of them stay the same, but 2 of them change because we're not talking about CloudFront and S3 buckets anymore. We're talking about Beanstalk. So starting with line 81, or sorry, slide 81, that's where you could find that. And then slide 82 has the code. So you need to change up what's in that push.yaml a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, I don't know how to deploy Python. I know how to deploy Go and Node because we did Node in class. But let's talk about Python. What do we need to know in order to deploy Python? Well, I'm going to cop out here and I'm going to say, let's go look at the docs.
I was going to say ask ChatGPT.
Ask ChatGPT, like explain to me like I'm 5 how to.
Why don't we just ask ChatGPT to deploy our app for us?
Listen, I was working on something at work and I didn't know how to do it. So I was like, I asked ChatGPT and it showed me how to do it. It worked.
I mean,
So, I have a question.
Tell ChatGPT and take my job from me. Sorry, go ahead. What?
So Django is to Python what React is to JavaScript?
Django is to Python what Express and SQLize is to Node.js.
Okay.
No, even that's not accurate because Django does so much
Yeah.
stuff.
There's not really a good analog based on what you've learned. Imagine all the libraries you use for everything in your backend app. Like all that stuff was one tool called Django. That's
Oh,
One
probably
big loaded tool called Django.
yeah, we've all got our opinions. I did want to mention one thing real quick, Nathan, before you get into this, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So there's this word that Nathan and I think Latonia mentioned it once, we keep throwing out called Docker. And it might be like interesting to point out where that could be a good tool for this, because so when you've been deploying your app so far, and Nathan, I'm going to keep this high level. I'm not going to get, I just want to sort of go conceptually why this might be an interesting thing to look into here. Like when you've been deploying your app so far, you've been taking this zip file, you've been packaging it up, and you've been giving it to Elastic Beanstalk, and it's been deploying it. And that works, but you're going to see here when you're going through this, like there's sort of instructions you have to make sure you follow for each of these different things. You sort of have to like go through the steps and set it up for each different system. And Nathan, said like he's got familiarity deploying Go and deploying Node, and that's it. And we're gonna have to sort of work through this Python together. Something like a tool like Docker, why that's interesting is imagine you could build your app, like sort of configure it and sort of set it up so you could set it up and build like the zip file. And you could do that in a way that sort of was like local and predictable. And then something like Elastic Beanstalk could just accept these like build artifacts. And the idea is like each build sort of is done in a way where like you sort of have a thing you can just download and you can use that everyone's sort of familiar with, and it's straightforward and easy. And then you don't have to learn the particularities of each of these deployment tools, like Elastic Beanstalk or like Heroku, or insert whatever tool you want there. Sort of this idea of Docker and sort of why it's kind of powerful is with Docker, you can build what's called an image, which sort of turns into a container, or like this sort of like this unit of code that's sort of like a building block. And they call it a container because it's like a shipping container on a ship. The idea is it's got an interface, sort of has like the things that like fits into the big stack of containers on the ship. And the idea is like, you want to sort of deploy this, you want to put it up on the cloud. If a thing can accept a Docker container, you can sort of build one of these things, give it to the cloud provider, and they'll just host it for you. And you don't have to worry about all the particularities of how it's deployed, how it's set up, like what language is it written in. If you can put it in a Docker container, it can run on the system. So, it sounds like we're going to go through this and sort of set it up, and it's going to be a worthwhile thing to do. But I want to point out that like, that this is a problem that sort of the industry has encountered, and that's one of the solutions it's come up with to solve this problem.
Mm-hmm.
We can go through that too, because I've actually been going through some like kind of basic tutorials on Docker and stuff like that. So yeah, whatever approach you want to take.
Well, it's kind of like, that's what the zip is representing. Like in an ideal world, well, we just take our code, no matter if it's Python or Go or Node or whatever, we take it, we throw it in a zip, and we just huck the zip into the cloud, and it would just run. But like a zip is just a bunch of code. It doesn't say how to run the code or how to install dependencies for the code or how to what ports to expose for the code. Like we've been sort of doing the same thing with zip, but like zip really isn't enough. Zip doesn't really tell you enough. That's where Ryan's talking about Docker containers or just containers in general. I don't want to get into, honestly, I don't want to get into containers just because I think it's kind of complicated.
Yeah.
What they try to sell us on here on this page specifically, what they try to sell us on is, look, if you know a Flask, if you know Django, if you know this piece of technology, here's a couple of instructions, you're off to the races. Well, that's good if all you care about is that one thing. But once you start working in different languages, working with a bunch of different technologies, you got to graduate to something because learning these one-off things is a bit tedious. And I'm gonna be even lazier, Kyle. I'm gonna be lazy and not do Django. I'm just gonna do Flask. Is that okay with you?
I mean, I've never done anything with Flask, so, but it's probably similar, right? So,
Yeah.
oh, there is a
Okay.
tutorial for Django. I see.
There is one.
I'm sorry, because is there not a plain Python option in here? Do we have to? I mean, I've worked with Python and Django, but I've never used Flask either. So I'm just curious if there's something a little closer to home.
We could do plain Python. The problem with plain Python is what are we going to use to, what are we going to use as our web server?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So
Well,
what if you
in-
made something in Fast API, for example?
Yeah, I have
Uh,
a Django app that I did if we just want like a quick project that someone can
Oh.
toss up.
Hold on. We have 0 votes for Flask. We have 1 vote for Fast API and 1 vote for Django. We need
No,
a
I'm not voting for
tiebreaker.
Fast API. I'm just saying like that would be another situation where, I don't know. It's,
Yeah, I'll go with the majority. I just thought I haven't used Flash. I'd like to like reserve my brain capacity and not.
Oh.
yeah, no, I
Django?
mean, I would vote for
Django.
Django based
Okay,
on like,
let's Django. That's
yeah,
fine.
in general, but yeah.
All right.
It's just
let's
when you
Django.
started saying about just plain Python, I didn't really know how that was possible. And I was trying to think of other platforms that were, simpler. And I thought of Fast
Yeah.
API, but yeah.
We could get away with, I think we could get away with plain Python. I would just I'd have to Google a couple things because, right, we would need to use the standard library to mount a port. It would be interesting. All right, let's do Django. So how do we get started with Django? Well, we install Django, that's fine, and then we pip freeze. I'm guessing we write this into a requirements txt. Sure enough, we do. All right, so it looks like Elastic Beanstalk needs a couple things from us to be in very specific locations. The first thing we need to provide, obviously, we have to provide a Django application, right? Because we need some code. But it looks like Elastic Beanstalk is going to look for a file called requirements.txt, so it knows what to install. And then it also looks like there's this special EB extensions. And this looks like, let me stop. Alba, were you able to get the front end to Polygon? Same error? Different error?
No, now it was S3, so I'm just trying to fix it and see if I could get it.
Do you want a screen share?
I already did. It said that it didn't recognize my password and stuff that I put in there, so I generated another one and I'm putting it in right now.
Oh, okay. Holler at me if that doesn't work, because that takes precedence over this. Okay. So it looks like we need to have this special folder called EB extensions with the Django config in it. So let's not forget that. And then we need a requirements.txt. All this looks normal. And then, of course, we have to remember Django has this funny allowed host setting. So we'll need to make sure that's set up correctly. But other than those 2 things,
So what is the Django config?
yeah, good
That's
question.
something that I don't think that automatically gets generated by Django, does it?
No, it doesn't. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for any magic that we have to fulfill in order to run. And it looks like you're right. There's the EB extensions that we have to figure out. And then it also looks like there's this DB migrate if we want to run migrations, which is super important. But let's ignore that for right now and not worry a whole lot about the database just yet. All right, let's set up a normal Django app. So what is the first step for setting up a Django app? Anybody know? How do you start a Django project?
You would make a virtual environment and install Django and
Okay.
whatever else you're gonna use.
I'm gonna just use poetry.
Okay.
So everybody cool with that? Antonia, are you cool with poetry?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yep.
Yeah, whatever you want to do, sure.
I'm saying, I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I vaguely remember using it on the other end as like a, to install something once, but yeah, it's okay.
Are folks more comfortable with virtual?
Hey, that's
What
what I
package
usually
manager?
do, but
Okay, you use virtual. Let's just do
Mhm.
virtual. I'm gonna call mine the same as Elastic Beanstalk. And then I'm gonna source it. So I'll put active. Oops, source that virtual and Django. Then wait, cool. I'm inside of in my terminal, at least this is how it tells me I'm inside of a virtual environment. Okay, pip install Django. So we'll get Django installed, and then we need to run Django. What is it? Django admin create app.
here's my cheat sheet.
That's great. Anybody know?
Check
Django.
the chat.
I have Django-admin start project, and then you give it a name. That's what my notes say.
Start project. Thank you. Oh, right, because you start the project and then wait, what are we gonna call this? This is gonna be the zoo, and we're gonna Django admin start app. What's that thing in the zoo? I don't know. The birdhouse.
They
Bird
close?
cage.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say they
What?
close.
We need like an app inside of the zoo. I'm just gonna go bird cages. Django. There we go. Let's look at what we got. We have bird. Oh, I didn't put this in the right place. We got to get rid of bird cages. Got to go to the zoo, right? And then from in here, then we create the bird cages app. So we have manage.py, bird cages, zoo. Does this look good?
Did we do our requirements file or are we
No,
skip-
not yet.
Oh,
We
okay.
haven't done that.
Yeah, I think we should be able to run it then, maybe.
So pip freeze will dump all the requirements we currently have installed. We'll dump that into a file. So now we have Django 417 in there and then a bunch of other stuff, sub dependencies for Django. So we've completed the first piece of magic, which is Elastic Beanstalk needs to have a requirement so it knows what to install when it starts running our code. The other piece of magic we needed is this EB extensions Django config.
Mhm.
So we'll make a directory and a Django config inside of it. And inside of here, it looks like we need to put this. And it's not. I think that's right. I think it's asking us for our main app. In this case, their app. They started the project. That's the name they gave it. That's
Okay.
the name that they want in the whiskey path. So we gave it zoo. Cool. What else do we need to do? I don't think we need to do anything else. I think we're done. Now let's go and upload. So we're gonna do the same thing where we zip this all up. Compress.
So you didn't even need to
And-
have it deployed to GitHub in order to do this.
No. I don't think so.
I'm just realizing that because I'm just thinking about when we deployed to Heroku and yeah. Cool.
So we'll go and create a new, for some reason I'm in.
I remember running
Oregon.
into a lot of problems where like I had things within the same repo and I had to like make separate GitHub repos for everything, but that doesn't even matter with AWS.
It does if you're gonna do the automated stuff, right? Like You
Right.
need to have a separate backend if you're going to push and have it deployed to the, but if you want to put it all in one repo, then yeah, you can sit there and slice it however you want.
Hmm.
So we'll call this Django Zoo. Environment name will be left blank. We'll set this to Python 3.8. That looks good. I don't know how any of that works. We'll upload some code. We'll choose the zip. Do we have a working Python project? We'll know in a few minutes. Alba.
My friend end is working. I figured it out. I'm trying to do the back end right now. I did
Okay.
it, but is there something that I'm missing?
What do you have done in the backend? Do you have the variables created?
Created the file. I created the file, GitHub workflows,
Mhm.
push.yaml. I put the code inside of it. I did the codes, the 4
See it
codes,
done.
ID, the key, the application and environment.
Mhm.
And then I pushed it through my GitHub desktop. But the dot is not showing.
Can you share share your screen? All right. If it's not showing up, go click on the actions tab. Yep. Nothing here. Okay, go back. So we know that this page is blank, meaning that actions hasn't picked up at all. So we're missing inside of the .github folder, we're missing a workflows. GitHub workflows push. That looks fine. Except, yeah, that looks fine. This is the Capstone backend. That looks fine, except I don't think that GitHub has picked it up. So go show me GitHub desktop. This is the Capstone backend.
Yeah, I just pushed it.
Yeah, but the click on the create push YAML commit here. Sorry, the top one. Yep. Okay, so you create a GitHub /push. Oh, put
Yes, out of workflows.
it needs to be moved into the workflows folder. Can you drag push.yaml up there? Yeah, into workflows. Yep, move. Perfect. Let's commit and push. Yeah, it just acts like it's shuffling stuff around. Before you do though, it looks like there's some formatting issues with the YAML. Go back to I think this is coming from the fact that the slides are hard to paste from. Can I take over for 1 second? Something funky is going on with these spaces. Yeah. I think that.
Are the minus signs supposed to be in there?
Yes, in YAML, those are supposed to delineate items in a list.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question. YAML is weird. I like
That's a good way to put it. YAML is weird.
I don't have any. I don't have anything there now.
It's worth though learning at some point because it comes up like pretty often.
I mean, it does, you're talking about Docker earlier. It does remind me a little bit of Docker, just in terms of it's kind of like writing a list of instructions for the computer to, yeah, I don't know. I guess JSON is technically like that too, but this just looks a little bit more like Docker than, I mean, it's like
Yeah.
actually saying on push, do this, and you know, these are the jobs, build this, and yeah, I don't know. Seems more explicit.
Yeah, but
Oh, I'm
check out
sorry.
what I'm doing. I'm literally wrestling with the the format. Do you
Maybe
see?
It's a new linter.
I think the
You
DevOps
tried.
thing, so you could probably get it from the right here.
Yeah, that is the that's the front end, and I just broke the link because I renamed it to deploy.yaml. Can I take over?
Yep.
Yeah, let's go and steal the back end. Go here. The one thing that we have to be careful about though is my example and your example are slightly different. This section. Oops. Back to the actions tab. And we are still dealing with broken YAML starting on line 23. 23 is
What
does
did she name
anybody
her
see
keys?
error?
I was say, what did she name her keys? Like the different stuff. What did she name in her GitHub?
I see. You've got duplicate keys. 22
Secret
and 23. Oh no.
access.
What am I saying? Never
Secret,
mind.
did I name them that same way?
Access?
Secret.
Secret access. Yay, YAML.
So if you were to look up like YAML lint and take that and paste it in, does it validate? Like, is it a GitHub Actions thing or a YAML thing, you know?
It's a YAML thing, for sure it's a YAML thing, because it's saying in GitHub Actions, it's saying it can't even render.
No, I mean, like, I guess, is it validating that it can't, that it's failing before it renders it or after it renders it?
Before it renders it.
Okay.
It's saying that our YAML syntax on line 22. So let's go and look up a YAML linter. The YAML linter. And I'm going to take all this, paste it in there.
Oh.
Oh. Oops. I'm guessing that will simply not allow us to do. Go back here. It thinks that we're doing. Oh, gross. Oh, gross. That's upset with us for using. We're using tabs instead of spaces. There we go.
Excellent.
Yay, YAML. YAML. This should be quicker. And it's deployed to Elastic Beanstalk. And it's waiting for the this code's going to block until the box goes green. But now you don't need to zip and upload code your backend anymore.
All right, so the front end is done and the back end is done. So now anytime that I actually push to GitHub desktop, it will get automatically done.
Yeah, it'll get automatically uploaded, and the way you'll know is if this is green, and that means your deploy is complete. Nicely done.
Now, do we have to go set it up for like a different project again?
Yeah, for each project, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Couple of things will stay the same though. Access keys can get reused. But yeah, S3 buckets and all that will change. All right, I got bad news for Python folks here. We did not get a working Python app. 100% of our requests are failing. I'm not surprised because Elastic Beanstalk will crash if you don't have a slash route that's returning 200s. I think the only one that we would have even had is the admin.
You mean because we didn't go in and specify our routes?
Yeah, exactly. I don't
Okay.
think we have any routes defined. Let's look at web standard outlog. Oh no, it's even worse. No module named application.
Oh, did we add it
So
to our settings? We didn't do any of that.
we didn't
We
do any app.
we did it.
We haven't done anything.
Yeah, I was assuming you knew what you're doing in terms of like, oh, we'll just deploy a basic app. Yeah.
Yeah,
Here's your
I thought we were
mistake.
It's been a while since I set up a Django app too. I really only done like tutorials with it and stuff.
Couple cool things to point out here though. It's using G-Unicorn, which is neat. I thought that I was just going to spin up the dev app server. So I'm impressed. It doesn't look like it's binding to the right port. It looks like it's binding to the regular 8000 that you get by default. That's a problem for Elastic Beanstalk. I know that's a problem for Elastic Beanstalk because we had to fix this in Node where we grabbed the port variable and bound to it. So so we will have to fix that. I'm surprised the instructions didn't have anything with that said. But what can we do to test to see if our app works? Well, we can just do manage run server. Yeah. And oh, so I mean, technically we do. We don't have any configured URLs. That's fine, but technically, if it were to have stood up the dev app server, it would have gotten 200s on slash. But because it's using G-Unicorn, it's not getting any of that. So
Is it because you misconfigured Elastic Beanstalk like it's a whiskey module?
yeah, that's going to be my next guess. But my thinking is, okay, so if we did get the whiskey module wrong, which is where the application, right, zoo.whiskey.application, where would the correct module be? And the answer is it's inside of zoo, whiskey, application is there. Right, zoo, whiskey, application. Zoo, whiskey, application. So this makes me feel like it's a pathing issue. So let's go and look at the tutorial and just check real quick, what does the when we zip this up, what does the file hierarchy look like? So EV Django, whiskey, application, that makes sense. And then replace the val. If you're using, replace the whiskey path. Is not supported by Linux AMI platform versions. I don't think we're running into that issue. But our file hierarchy looks the same. We totally have a whiskey. So why is it not?
Did you do something crazy like maybe omit the first line of the Elastic Beanstalk config or something? Are you sure you got the whole thing?
I'm sure I got the whole thing. Option settings. Plastic Beanstalk, container Python.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, so how
Is
can
there
we
something
tell?
with spaces versus tabs again?
I think I can resolve this. So it's running GUnicorn under the hood, right? We saw that in the logs. Well, what can you do with GUnicorn to spin up an app? You can
I'm not
pass
familiar
it.
with GUnicorn.
I mean, it basically got there though.
Wait, from Django, it's complaining because, wait, which, this is the oh, that's the problem here. We want to be using, our Python's GUnicorn, not my system GUnicorn. There we go. Now if we open that up, okay. So I know that that is a valid path that GUnicorn can definitely load. Why can't this one? My guess is zip. Something weird going on with how we're creating the zip here. So let me, good selling point for not using zips to do your deploy. Let me grab all of this, throw it into a zip again, and let's upload that. Wait, there's the problem.
Oh yeah, hidden files.
there's the problem right there, right? RM. So in Finder, we're not seeing that hidden .eb extensions folder, so it's not getting zipped up. So we need to steal.
The problem is if you zip it in the terminal, then it's going to zip the whole folder, not just the contents like how you were having us do. I remember I had to do it in the Finder because when I did it in the terminal, it was causing problems.
Not creating, right, it wasn't creating the right zip. However, I have exactly the command that we can use because it's what I'm using when I do my backend deploys. So I know that this zip will create the correct format for my deploy or for my zip
And
file.
you have the EB extensions logged there, so you can even be even more sure you got it.
Yep. Oh, and I'm also picking up PyCache. Cool. Let's upload this again.
So what were you just doing there when you copied and pasted the zip commands there or whatever? That was something that will not zip the folder, just the contents, or?
Yeah, this zips everything from within the directory that my terminal is currently sitting.
Okay, I was Googling all kinds of stuff trying to get that to work the other day when, and I was like, I used the Finder and I was like, but I'm sure there's a way to do this. And I was finding all kinds of things and none of them were working on my particular computer. So that's cool.
Yeah, I'm assuming that this has to work because I tested that backend deploy code. So I know that it creates zips properly. It's still running the update, so that's why we're waiting to get logs. Alba, did you have a question or are you?
Yeah, now my food pantry is not showing anymore in my site.
Oh, it's like completely down.
Yes.
The front end or the back end?
The front end. Oh, well, actually the back end, because it's not sending in the information.
The back end, okay. Yeah, let's give this a minute to bake. Go ahead and share. The back end's not working. Have you checked the logs to see what's going on?
I'm about to check.
Okay.
I was just checking the code to make sure that there wasn't anything.
Well, yeah, take us to the deployed website first, and let's see what's going on when you visit the website. Okay, so nothing's showing up in the API. All right, yeah, let's go check the logs then. It's a reasonable thing to do. Severe, ouch, okay. So click into the environment you've got. Go look at logs under the logs pane to the left. Let's see what's causing it to crash. Yep. Web standard out log. Air DL. Oh, sorry. Scroll up. Scroll up. Up. You're going down. Go up. So this is a standard out log. This is what we care about, and it starts from oldest to youngest entry. So scroll down till we get to the new. All right, here's the error right here. So it's crashing because node modules has snuck in here. So somehow we're pushing node modules. I believe. Ryan, are you seeing something different?
No, I concur. I'm thinking it's trying to parse a Mac dilib or something.
Yeah. I think that the node modules have gotten committed somehow for your backend. So switch to your backend, Capstone. Yep. Switch to your backend, click on the changes, and let's just see if we can rack up some changes. So hit changes. All right, now take me to the code and delete your node modules. So open in VS Code and right click that node modules folder. Now let's see if doing that, yep, delete. Let's see if doing that causes, so click back to GitHub. Yeah, there we go. It's all being tracked by Git, so we don't want these to show up in Git. Yep, delete node modules. Perfect. And then push, yep. And then to prevent this from happening in the future, go up and create a new file here in your backend. Right click and yep, new file, or however you want to make a new file at the top. New file. Oh, sorry. Right click again and recheck that new file that you just, yeah. What happened to it? Can I take over a second?
Yep.
There it is, new file. We're just gonna make a new file called ignore. We're gonna remember to always ignore node modules. Then I think the first deploy will be enough to kick this off, but if we go back to your backend and click on actions, we'll see we actually just triggered 2 deploys. Which isn't a big deal. One of those 2 will be one of these 2. Well, let's wait for this one. One of these 2 will be enough. This one is upset because it's saying that, oh, it's failing because the health hasn't gone green yet, which is expected. All right, let's go back.
Oh, what happens if you have a deploy that's in progress and you deploy on top of it with Elastic Beanstalk? How does it handle that?
I don't know. I have no idea. Let's see. If we go back. Let's look at the second deploy that's going on. It's just it's oddly it's happier. Perhaps that's because the previous deploy was successful. Let's see the last 100 logs here. I mean, the other thing we could do is just refresh and see the front page. Connected to DB successfully. Server's running. Let's refresh.
Thank you.
Nice. What was our issue there? We've already forgotten. Oh, node modules. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, If we track our node modules in GitHub, then they get uploaded. That's what we were trying to avoid every time we archived and made that zip, was uploading those node modules. So nicely done.
Specifically, if folks care why that is, the really high level version is that the data that npm install will create in there is different depending on whether you run on Mac and Linux. So if you try to give a Linux system some Mac node modules, it's not going to like it, and it's vice versa.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. You install those libraries for the kind of computer that you're running. Yep. All right. Let's see our adventures in Python. Let's actually get logs. See what the latest from our Python app is telling us. It is saying connection refused, error log, bunch of, here we go. We have a new error. Invalid HTTP host, you may need to add blah, blah, blah to allowed host. So we fixed it by adding that ebconfig special folder. Now it's telling us we have to fix the issue that they pointed out in the documentation, which is going into zoo settings, allowed host. I'm going to cheat. It will say everybody is allowed. Do the zip again, upload the zip. Right, that's a valid thing you can do. You could say star.
I don't know. Maybe.
We'll find out.
We'll see.
And if we get it wrong, we'll have only wasted about 45 seconds.
Yeah. I think everyone on this call knows this, but if they don't, Nathan and I used to work together. So like we used to work together on Django. This is like back memories for both of us here.
A lot of throwing stuff into the wind and seeing if it sticks.
I didn't know that, but that's pretty cool though.
All right, let's request these logs. Last 100. I'm feeling good about this one. Let's see. Booting worker, it's sticking. Oh, but we still have one last issue, right? We don't have an issue.
Oh, yeah,
We don't have an issue. Yeah, we didn't need to bind the port for some reason. So
I mean,
can we?
Is it health checking successfully?
It's
wow,
green.
it is. Huh.
And there it is. There's our Django debug loading splash page. So what did we need to do? We need to carefully zip things. We need to generate a requirements txt, an ebconfig with just the right things from the example here that follows exactly what they have. And we have Django.
Okay, and then just make sure we put in our hosts, and we were good to go. Nice.
Yeah, in the HTTP host, I put star. You would want to set this to, whatever. Yeah. Anyways, there's Django. There's Django. We did it.
Nice.
Cool. I'm just gonna bookmark that page in the documentation.
Yeah, can you
Cool.
put that in the chat? Did you already put it? I may have missed it.
Bookmark the documentation to the page we were working on.
I
Sure.
mean, we could
Yeah, the
probably
page you
find
were
it,
just
right? I'm
on.
on Amazon S3 documentation, API reference, probably.
There it is.
Yeah, thanks for doing this session.
Thanks, that's easier.
Yeah, thank you all.
Yeah,
I really
appreciate
appreciate you
it.
sticking around and hacking on this with me. I think after this, if you, Larry, especially if you want to talk more about the front end and back end, we could do some one-on-ones.
Okay. Appreciate you, Nathan. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate you too, Ryan and Latonia.
Yeah.
And
Thanks for inviting me to this one, Nathan. Or maybe I invited myself. I forgot how that worked. But
Yeah. Thanks everybody for coming. Just have a good weekend and see y'all.
Bye.
bye.